Chapter 269. The crescent moon hung in the west. The green-spectacled hound, the grayish-red earth spider, and Lancelot quietly moved along the shadows between the low sand dunes and carefully touched the edge of the deep pit. Here, Lancelot took a step forward and opened the 2 infrared detectors on his chest that were rarely used. The number has increased a lot compared to before. Now, there are at least 100 ats wandering in the deep pit. Ray Minkai reported the situation he observed in the combat channel that they discussed in advance. 100? In the impact just now, there are still 100 ats surviving? Titania frowned slightly, but she was in disbelief. One had to know that her grayish-red earth spider was able to survive the previous impact, and it took a Herculean effort to do so. And those pilots whose piloting skills were obviously not as good as hers were able to do so? No. They didn't survive. They should be controlled. Ray Minkai raised his hand and pressed on the control panel. He looked at the image that popped up after the system's optical analysis and continued. The ats wandering near the coffin don't seem to be complete. There are scars all over their bodies, and even a few ats' head armor is damaged. Unmanned? When he heard that the head armor was damaged, Ziligu remembered the unmanned black spectacled hound that he destroyed before he fainted. It had the same maneuvers as Fianna when she personally piloted the at. I'm afraid so. Looking through the damaged helmet, I didn't see a single human sitting inside. If it weren't for the fact that the at's cockpit was not equipped with a screen, Ray Minkai would have been more than happy to share the images and information collected by Lancelot. However, in fact, the ats could not be involved in Lancelot's intelligence system. The only thing it could do was to have Ray Minkai share the information collected by Lancelot to Ziligu and Titania in the form of oral narration. Although it was a pity, for Ziligu and Titania it was indeed enough. Spectre? Titania muttered to herself for a moment before speaking again. Kiliku. It was Fianna's spirit that was lying in the middle of the pit. What should we do? What should he do? Kiligu's gaze and expression did not change at all. The answer, perhaps it had been decided from the very beginning. Buzz. The green-spectacled hound that Kiligu had replaced in Jerfy City charged out first amidst the rumbling of the movable wheel. Da-da-da-da-da. However, when the green-spectacled dog flew out from the edge of the pit and fell downwards, the 2 short-barreled heavy machine guns in its hands let out a sharp roar. TSK. Bang. Bang. The bullets from the short-barreled heavy machine gun hit the ats that were wandering in the deep pit. In the midst of the sparks from the clash between bullets and armor, the green-spectacled hound that launched the ambush had an additional 10 ats. However, this was only the situation in the short 30 seconds that Kiligu piloted the landline to launch the ambush. As the black-spectacled hounds and the earth spiders mixed among them were blown up by the green-spectacled hound, these ats that were like resurrected dead immediately woke up from their stupor. At this moment, Kiligu felt an unusually familiar aura. This was the aura of the woman he cared about the most in his life. Fianna, do you want to open your eyes and see the world again? A cold light flashed in Kiligu's eyes, and the green-spectacled hound's movements suddenly became strange and unpredictable. Sometimes it was like a spirit snake swimming, sometimes it was like a thunderbolt. In less than a minute, in the eyes of ordinary people, the mass-produced green-spectacled hound that was undoubtedly synonymous with backwardness actually made a series of maneuvers that even the elite pilots of the Empire could not complete in a coherent manner. Perhaps it could be said that, as long as one could master the maneuvers that Kiligu was using at this moment, that pilot would be the elite of the elite. However, the enemies that stood opposite Kiligu were the same. No matter if it was the snake-like sliding steps used by Kiligu, or the rapid continuous turns and other maneuvers, they were all able to follow Kiligu's movements without any difference. Everything in front of him was so strange. However, Kiligu was unmoved. In his eyes there was only one goal. That was to rush to the center of the deep pit at the fastest speed possible, and once again arrive in front of Fianna's coffin. 1. Suddenly, a beam of light pierced through the air, and blew up an earth spider that was trying to pounce on the green-spectacled hound from the side. Ray Minkai. Killigu slightly glanced sideways, and after glancing at the white figure at the edge of the deep pit, he once again launched an assault. He's really full of energy. Killigu. The beam of light that shot just now was Lancelot, who had adjusted the Vari's rifle to the newly developed sniper mode. There are no abnormalities in the observation data. The energy output is stable. Target hit. The white cat's tail swayed slightly, and its pair of golden pupils were also staring at the screen. Got it. Looks like the effect is not bad. After we go back, this data should be able to make Dr. Pudding happy for a few days. Ray Minkai slightly raised his gaze and glanced at the data on the screen from the top of the sniper's scope. Don't be distracted, Kai. This time, if you want to retreat again, Long Fong Lion will personally take action. The white cat opened its mouth and issued a series of threats. It seemed that the somewhat arrogant white cat was already dissatisfied with the decision to give up on taking back the shards when they were so close. Don't worry. I won't forget about you. As Ray Minkai casually replied, he pulled the trigger again and let Lancelot shoot out 3 beams of light in one breath. The first beam of light, like the previous ones, accurately blew up the enemy that was blocking the green-spectacled hound's path. The second and third beams of light were shot in the other direction, which was the direction where Titania's gray-red earth spider was at. Titania's actions were different from Ziligu's. She did not choose to rush into the deep pit with Ziligu. Instead, she silently watched Ziligu's green-spectacled hound rush out for a distance, and then began to speed up to catch up. Because of this, when Titania saw the enemy's actions clearly, her presence was also exposed to the enemy's eyes. Titania did not know why, but she felt that the attacks on her side were much more than those on Ziligu's side. This feeling was not unfounded. If Ziligu's enemies were rated as 3, then Titania's enemies were rated as 10. Therefore, when Titania tried to break through the encirclement, Ray Minkai's support arrived. 1. The black-spectacled hounds that attacked the gray-red earth spider from the left and right were immediately shot through by Lancelot's 2 beams of light. Boom! Amidst the violent explosion, the gray-red earth spider that Titania was piloting charged out of the fireball, leaving behind a trail of smoke as it charged toward Ziligu's area. On the way, the ats that tried to intercept the gray-red earth spider were all shot down by Lancelot's sniper. Beep beep. The reminder that the magazine was empty rang. Ray Minkai tilted his head slightly, and the fixed sniper scope in front of him was automatically operated as it slowly retracted to the top of the cockpit. Bang! A heavy object landed on the sand with a dull thud. It was Lancelot throwing the emptied Vari's rifle onto the sand. Then, as the racks on both sides of the cockpit rotated, Lancelot's radiation vibrasword was tightly gripped in Lancelot's hands. Now was the time. Earlier, Ray Minkai, Ziligu, and Titania discussed and decided that Ziligu and Titania would attract the firepower while Lancelot, who had the ability to fly, would attempt to break through the air to attract the attention of the coffin. However, was the coffin or was Fianna still alive? Ray Minkai and Ziligu had no way of knowing. Only when Lancelot or the green-spectacled hounds rushed forward would there be a chance to learn the truth. Unfolding his light wings, Lancelot leaped dozens of meters into the air. With a turn, he immediately accelerated toward the circular object in the center of the deep pit, the coffin. Da-da-da-da! Boom! 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 Lancelot's operation did not go smoothly. Although Ziligu and Titania worked together to attract the enemy's attention, the ats hovering around the coffin were clearly different from the black-spectacled hounds and spiders outside the deep pit. They immediately raised their heavy machine guns, anti-tank cannons, and even anti-air missiles that had never been used in the plot. In an instant, with the coffin as the center, the area within 100 meters was filled with bullets, artillery shells, and anti-aircraft missiles with smoke trailing behind them. Schwa! With a flash of light, Lancelot's usual radiation energy shield was activated. In the next moment, the densely packed bullets and artillery shells swarmed over like flies that had smelled honey. In a situation where it was unable to break through the defense of the radiation energy shield, it forcefully pushed Lancelot back from the 100-meter-long anti-air firepower net with a powerful impact. TSK. When did it become a tortoise shell? Lei Minkai furrowed his brows. After several attempts, Rei Minkai finally discovered that the ats surrounding the coffin seemed to be focused on guarding against Lancelot's advance. As soon as Lancelot appeared and was about to rush into the anti-air firepower net, these ats, even if Xilicu and Titania were closing in on them, would immediately turn their muzzles and fire an airtight anti-air firepower net at Lancelot. Kai. We are being targeted. I found it. Compared to Xilicu and Titania, the coffin seems to be more afraid of our approach. Rei Minkai glanced at the green-spectacled hounds and gray-red spiders that were about to rush to within 100 meters of the coffin. It's afraid of being eaten by me. After looking at it for a while, the white cat State Zero opened its mouth slightly, revealing a pair of sharp teeth. Afraid? The fragment has developed self-awareness? Rei Minkai was stunned. This was something that he had never heard of before, nor had he ever thought of. No. It's not like that. In the end, it was the white cat State Zero that refuted its own words. No matter what, the battle continued. Seeing that Lancelot was trapped in the airtight anti-air firepower, Xilicu and Titania, who had broken through to about 150 meters away from the coffin, immediately began the next step. The gray-red spider accelerated and overtook Xilicu's green-spectacled hounds. At the same time, it raised the machine gun in its hand and fired at the enemy in front of it. In the whistling of the bullets, Titania did not care how many enemies her gray-red spider could hit. She only knew that under her control, the gray-red spider had rushed to within 100 meters of the coffin. Ta. Soon, when the gray-red spider stepped within 100 meters of the coffin, the machine gun in its hand had just emptied all of its ammunition. Right now, the gray-red spider had lost all of its long-range attacks. However, Titania's expression was still calm. Dang. The sound of metal colliding exploded. It was the sound of the gray-red spider smashing the empty machine gun in its hand on the black-spectacled hound, whose head armor was still damaged. Then, the gray-red spider swung its right fist. Bang! As the unique sound of the armed punch exploded, the black-spectacled hound, who was pushed back by the gray-red spider's heavy machine gun, was immediately smashed to the ground by the armed punch. Ka. As the black-spectacled hound fell to the ground, the grayish-red earth spider, under Titania's control, used its body as a rolling stone and pushed it back in one go, knocking down 2 or 3 black-spectacled hounds along the way. Xilicu! Titania shouted Xilicu's name as the gray-red spider swung its fists and smashed the black-spectacled hounds that rushed over. Hum! The movable wheel spun rapidly, and the green-spectacled hound rushed out from behind the gray-red spider as fast as lightning. When it passed by the gray-red spider, it raised its left hand and 2 shadows flew toward the gray-red spider. When the gray-red spider reached out and caught the shadows, Titania realized that it was the short-barreled heavy machine gun that the green-spectacled hound had been using. Xilicu! You bastard! Titania glanced at the green-spectacled hound that plunged into the enemy, and once again raised the machine gun and fired a barrage of bullets. In the sky, Lancelot's figure quickly descended. Rei Minkai saw it. Under the impact of Xilicu and Titania, the ats that surrounded the coffin within 100 meters had no time to take care of Lancelot. Even if there was, it wouldn't be as terrifying as before, where the impact of the explosion of bullets and artillery shells forced Lancelot to retreat. Sure enough, the density of the anti-air firepower network decreased. Then, it meant that the opportunity had arrived. With a flash of light wings, Lancelot didn't advance but retreated. After rising more than 10 meters, he extended the light wings behind him to the maximum. Ka! Lei Minkai stretched out his thumb and pressed down hard. Lancelot's light wings suddenly burst out with a dazzling light, pouring down a rain of light that looked gorgeous, but was actually incomparably fatal, towards the at below. Chapter 270. The violent light rain wantonly shot out from Lancelot's light wings and swarmed toward the ats that were clustered around the coffin. Bang! 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 Under the light rain, whether it was the black-spectacled hound or the earth spider, their armor couldn't withstand the light rain attack from Lancelot. Even if there was a slight change in their armor, it was still easily destroyed by the light rain as if it was a piece of paper. It directly hit the at's energy mechanism. Boom! Boom! Wherever the light rain passed, there were flying armor fragments. They were all ats that were hit by the energy source and fell into a symbiotic explosion. The exploding fireballs were like road signs, pointing the way for Killigoo and Titania, who were on the other side. That mech can actually reach such a level? Titania looked at Lancelot, who had revealed a new trump card, in surprise. Originally, when she saw that Lancelot had the ability to fly that all known ats didn't have, Titania subconsciously thought that this might be a very powerful at, KMF, body. But in reality, the performance that Lancelot displayed at this time surprised Titania and even Killigoo. Lei Minkai. What a terrifying man! Killigoo's expression twitched, and he subconsciously said these words. From the first time they met, Killigoo felt that Lei Minkai seemed to be very familiar with him and knew about him. Lei Minkai even knew about Killigoo, Fianna, and the other people close to him. Even Titania, who was both his enemy and his friend, was the same. However, no matter what, Lei Minkai's current attitude and actions showed that he was on his side. In that case, Killigoo could determine that Lei Minkai was his comrade. Thoughts flashed through his mind like lightning. Killigoo's eyes moved away from the explosions caused by the light rain and landed on the coffin far away. Moreover, when his eyes fell on the layer of translucent glass on the coffin, an illusion appeared. Fianna was looking at him, just like when she was still alive, staring at him. Fianna. The moment Killigoo's suppressed roar came out of his throat, the green-spectacled hound exploded with all its strength, brazenly smashing down the earth spider in front of it with one punch. Moreover, the moment the earth spider fell, the green-spectacled hound jumped onto its body, using this earth spider as a stepping stone for the hound to leap high into the air. Da-da-da-da! The moment the green-spectacled hound leaped high, the bullets fired by the gray-red spider Titania was driving roared as they flew past the green-spectacled hound's feet, turning the ats in front of it into a hornet's nest as they tried to take advantage of the green-spectacled hound's leap to attack. TSK. Bang. Bang. The crisp sound of bullets hitting armor rang out rapidly. At the moment when the rapid music reached its peak, an even louder sound became the accompaniment of the green-spectacled hound soaring into the sky. Boom! As the life-devouring flames swept up, Killigoo calmly adjusted the green-spectacled hound's posture in the air so that it could fly further away. However, the ats clustered around the coffin would not just watch the green-spectacled hound fly directly to the front of the coffin. Therefore, even if they were facing the two-sided attack of Lancelot in the sky and the gray-red spider on the ground, the remaining ats still surged toward the green-spectacled hound. Numerous black muzzles were pointed at him. Missiles that were ready to be fired one after another. This was the situation the green-spectacled hound was facing. Da-da-da! Loud gunshots rang out. Boom! 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 Close to 100 missiles soared into the sky, completely sealing off the space in front of the green-spectacled hound. As long as the green-spectacled hound continued to move forward, it would inevitably end up being shot to death. However, Killigoo did not retreat because of this. Because, at the moment when these attacks were about to hit the green-spectacled hound, a black shadow suddenly appeared in front of the green-spectacled hound. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the black shadow that suddenly appeared replaced the green-spectacled hound and became the victim of this hail of bullets. And the green-spectacled hound that should have been sacrificed in this hail of bullets flew out of the billowing smoke unscathed under the guidance of a steel cable. Chi Gu. Fly! The moment the steel cable tightened, Ray Minkai pulled hard on the joystick. Lancelot, who was flying in the air, immediately swung with all his might and threw the green-spectacled hound that was tightly grabbing onto the hooked claws even higher into the air, above the coffin. So, the black shadow that suddenly appeared in front of the green-spectacled hound was the pair of hooked claws on Lancelot's waist. At the same time that the pair of hooked claws were ejected, Lancelot, under the control of Ray Minkai, also ejected the hooked claws on his left arm, allowing the green-spectacled hound to catch them. Then was the scene just now. In the next moment, the green-spectacled hound that was thrown high into the air by Lancelot suddenly descended rapidly and crashed into the enemy like a meteor. At the same time that it smashed an unlucky earth spider into pieces, Chi Gu quickly made the green-spectacled hound snatch the heavy machine gun from the hands of the unlucky earth spider. Da-da-da! Without hesitation, Chi Gu didn't wait for his own plane to stabilize before he immediately raised the heavy machine gun and continuously fired bullet after bullet at the surrounding area. Then, using the cover of the bullet to buy enough time for the plane to stabilize, Chi Gu immediately made the green-spectacled hound move again. This time, it wasn't the green-spectacled hound's solo attack. Instead, Lancelot, who had retracted his light wings, landed behind the green-spectacled hound. At this moment, Ray Minkai and Chi Gu didn't say anything, nor did they send out any signals. However, these two people who had just met not long ago were like a pair of partners that had gone through life and death many times on the battlefield as they simultaneously launched their attack. The green-spectacled hound's moving wheel. Lancelot's guiding wheel. They both let out a rapid whirring sound as they pushed these two bodies of similar size to each other back to back as they quickly rotated. As Lancelot and the green-spectacled hound rotated, Lancelot's radiation vibration sword released blood-red sword rays, while the green-spectacled hound's heavy machine gun shot out fatal bullet. Following closely behind Lancelot's sword rays, all the ats in front of them were completely annihilated. Bang! On the other side, it was the gray-red earth spider that had once again found an opportunity to launch a new round of attack. When Lancelot used his hook to throw the green-spectacled hound higher into the air, Titania decisively opened fire on the gray-red earth spider. Hot bullet shells were thrown out of the launcher and fell into the sand and dust stirred up by the grayish-red earth spider's rapid charge. Ka! Although the storm created by the gray-red earth spider looked terrifying, it was still limited by the amount of ammunition. TSK. Is there no more ammunition? Titania learned from Ziliku and used the short-barreled heavy machine gun to smash the earth spider pouncing from the right. She once again waved her fists and fearlessly pounced into the at team that was mixed with the black-spectacled hound and earth spider in front of her. Right now, the distance between the gray-red earth spider and the coffin was close. As long as Titania could get rid of this annoying earth spider in front of her, she would be able to do so. Suddenly, a wave of uneasiness surged toward Titania like a tide. Titania's instincts that had been trained from fighting back and forth on the battlefield for a long time made her immediately change her movements. She abruptly changed from charging forward to rapidly retreating. At the same time, she did not forget to shout on the communication channel. Ziliku. Ray Minkai. Danger. It seems like something is coming this way. Before he finished speaking, countless light spots suddenly appeared in the sky. What ominous specks of light they were! Anyone who saw the dense and silent light spots in the sky would have the same thought. That was because behind these dots of light was the destruction of everything. Missiles! Is it the church? Ziliku. When Lei Minkai saw the densely packed dots of light above his head, he immediately yelled out. The target of these light spots was obviously here. This deep pit. The coffin in the center of this deep pit. There was no time. Although Titania's warning came quickly, the light spots that covered the entire sky came even faster. In just a blink of an eye, Lei Minkai heard the true body of these light spots, the rumbling sound of missiles tearing through the sky. There's not enough time. State 0. Under Lei Minkai's call, Lancelot jumped up again. He raised his hand and popped out the claw on his forearm. He tied up the gray-red earth spider that had rushed to not far away and pulled it hard, pulling it to himself and the green-spectacled hound. Woo! In the next moment, the light spots that covered the sky fell. The densely packed missiles fell from the sky crazily as if they were free. One after another, they smashed into the deep pit and set off a series of violent explosions. Roar! In the midst of the explosions, an even louder roar exploded. Then, it was drowned out by the explosions caused by the missiles that fell from the sky. From the moment the missiles fell, this series of explosions were like firecrackers during the New Year. There was no sign of it stopping. Until a trace of white appeared on the horizon, the light spots in the sky finally disappeared. What was left was the deep pit that had been blown beyond recognition. It was a scene of devastation, almost expanded by several times, and debris all over the ground. The smoke gradually dissipated, and the center of the deep pit that was the focus of attention once again appeared under the sky. The coffin was actually undamaged, even if it had suffered the previous terrifying attack. Crack! A dull sound came from the ground, and the ground on the right side of the coffin was suddenly torn apart. In the midst of the dust, a steel beast that was more than 10 meters tall rushed out from the ground and stood firmly on the bumpy ground. Bah! Kai. Next time, I won't believe your nonsense anymore. You actually want me, the sacred beast of the country, to dig a hole? The giant steel beast opened its mouth unhappily and tried to spit out the non-existent soil in its mouth. At least, we avoided the baptism of the sea of missiles. In the hole behind the giant beast, Lancelot, the green-spectacled dog, and the grayish-red spider came out one after another. The coffin is actually fine? The moment they walked out of the hole that allowed them to escape the baptism of the sea of missiles, Titania saw the undamaged coffin. Hearing this, Lei Minkai and Ziligu both had a strange expression. Lei Minkai was amazed at the sturdiness of the coffin. Kiligu, on the other hand, was surprised, but he also heaved a sigh of relief. Although to Ziligu it was a bit strange, but this was how Ziligu felt at the moment. Titania, can the church do such an attack? Lei Minkai added. With the current church. Titania looked around and looked at the deep hole that was forcefully expanded by several times in the baptism of the sea of missiles. She shook her head. No. The church is already on the decline. Even if they still have enough power, they can't do such a thing. Chapter 271. The cold steel armor reflected the radiance of the rising sun. Helicopters with black spectacled dogs hanging from their abdomens flew across the sky in a neat formation amidst the roar of the propellers stirring the air. Below the helicopters, which numbered at least 100, was the huge army that stirred up bursts of dust as they moved. This was all the power that the Marugi army could send out at great risk. The commander who sent out the army, composed of at least 1,000 black-spectacled dogs, had reason to believe that on this planet where the Mathiaru Church was gradually losing control, there would no longer be any power that could threaten them. Even if there was, it would only be a coffin that fell from the sky. What should we do? Although we have taken care of the 250 ats, we now have to face an enemy more than 4 times their number. Although Titania spoke cautiously, one could hear from her voice that this woman known as the Shield of Order wasn't afraid of the upcoming battle with great disparity in strength. Ziligu still didn't speak. He just let the green-spectacled dog turn around and silently picked up the GAT-22 heavy machine gun that was discarded on the side. He began a new round of inspection and collection of ammunition. Of course, this was the same strategy that Ziligu adopted in the previous battle. Since the ground was already full of wreckage, they might as well collect some usable ammunition and guns from nearby to prepare for the next battle. Ziligu, you don't underestimate them. That's thousands of ATs. Titania found that Ziligu didn't propose a tactical arrangement as she imagined. When there wasn't even the most basic communication, she couldn't help but scold him. No, Titania. Let him be. Now let Ziligu have some time alone. At this time, after Ray Minkai spoke for Ziligu, he shifted the topic to Titania. Titania, can your body still hold on? Hearing this, Titania's face darkened, but she still nodded. Although the situation is not optimistic, I can still hold on. While speaking, a GAT-22 heavy machine gun suddenly appeared in front of Titania. Titania took a moment to process it. She subconsciously controlled the gray-red spider to catch the GAT-22 heavy machine gun that appeared in front of her. Check. The ammo is full. Fine. Ray Minkai shrugged as he watched the interaction between Ziligu and Titania. He didn't say anything else. So, Lancelot turned around and jumped, flew to the edge of the deep pit, and landed next to the long-fanged lion. Now, the AT in the deep pit had been blown up. Ray Minkai and the others only had to be on guard against the enemies who were coming this way. If I want to run away, I can take the coffin with me. State Zero's voice sounded in the private channel. And then? Bring the coffin back to our world? Ray Minkai shook his head. That's fine too. After all, we can avoid trouble. No. In doing so, we may become the enemy of Ziraguchubi. This wasn't good. If we let such a bug-like man stand opposite us, I won't be able to sleep. Ray Minkai's attitude was very firm. No matter what, he had to stand on the side of Ziragu's teammate and solve the problem in front of him today. Even if he didn't get Ziraguchubi's friendship, Ray Minkai had to at least get Ziraguchubi's promise. This was a premonition that might be useful one day in the future. Then let's fight. Although there are about 1,000 of them, what can these short little things do? State Zero raised his head slightly, and the pair of sharp teeth emitted a faint cold light. Behind him, there was a buzzing sound of a spinning wheel. Then, the green-spectacled dog and grayish-red spider charged out of the deep pit, equipped with machine guns in their hands and waist. They also had missile pods dug out from the thick layer of floating soil. They rushed to Lancelot's side. The green-spectacled dog stretched out his right hand. In his hand were two GAT-11 heavy machine guns with short barrels. Although they looked damaged, they could still be used. Thank you, Ziragu. Lancelot is not suitable to use at weapons. Now, this is enough for Lancelot. Ray Minkai smiled slightly. While he sighed that his decision was right, he let Lancelot gesture with the radiation vibrating sword in his hand. With the combination of the radiation vibrating sword and the radiation energy shield, Lancelot's combat power did not decrease because of the lack of long-range weapons. Ziragu, Titania, let's leave the front line to this big guy. You guys are responsible for covering the left and right of the hunter's tooth lion. The two ATs piloted by Ziligu and Titania turned the adjustable cameras on their heads in unison, constantly sizing up the huge steel beast standing beside Lancelot. They didn't know how this steel beast had appeared, but they knew that it was this steel beast that had suddenly appeared before the missiles had washed over the ground, saving the two of them by a hair's breadth. Understood. Ziragu nodded. As for Titania, she didn't say anything. In the face of thousands of ATs, if they could have an obvious and powerful teammate as a target, it might be easier for them. You two little ones, keep up with my speed. Seeing that Ziragu and Titania had no objections, The hunter's tooth lion's eyes flashed and the two plasma propulsion engines on its back suddenly activated. Boom! As the long blazing plasma flame instantly spewed out, the hunter's tooth lion had already rushed 100 meters away. So fast! Ziragu and Titania were shocked, but at the same time, they piloted their own at and followed. The team combination of the huge steel beast and the short at was thus born. Behind them, Lancelot bent his legs and jumped into the air. Buzz! The light wings on Lancelot's back spread out again. We can leave the ground, to state Zero and Ziragu. As for the air, let's leave it to Lancelot. In front of them, the only thing that could threaten Ziragu and Titania was the helicopters in the air. They had to shoot down these helicopters before they attacked the green spectacled dog and the gray-red earth spider. In the huge army, a commander with an obvious logo followed behind the large army unhurriedly under the protection of 20 black spectacled dogs that looked slightly different in appearance. In the command vehicle, in addition to the personnel driving the vehicle and paying attention to the data fed back by the movement of the army, a middle-aged man wearing a Maruk army uniform had a flattering smile on his face. He said to the masked man in a black robe sitting opposite him, "Mr. K. How's our Maruk army?" "Not bad. I didn't expect that you guys would succeed just because we did it on a whim." That's right. No matter what, the number 1 PS is the masterpiece of our Maruk army. Naturally, we can do more than those fools from the church." The middle-aged man nodded and said, "Well, I know that." At this point, the masked man called Mr. K fell silent and ignored the middle-aged man. The only thing that could be felt was his gaze that was always paying attention to the deep pit. The middle-aged man who was trying to curry favor with Mr. K did not know. The masked man he was trying to curry favor with was actually just a newcomer. He was a newcomer from an organization that secretly provided the fragments to the Maruk army. Is it just a breeder farm? This thought suddenly flashed through the masked man's mind. In his eyes, the army in front of him that could casually pull out as many as thousands of ats could be said to be one of the top forces in the world in his hometown. Not to mention that the ats in the fleet of warships in space had not yet been dispatched. This power, this boldness, but it became the organization's breeder farm. It seemed that the water in this world, no, it should be the water in this universe, was deeper than he imagined. Suddenly, a flash of light flashed in the sky. "Commander! Someone is coming." Mr. K withdrew his gaze and closed his eyes slightly. "What?" The middle-aged man was shocked and hurriedly shouted, "Turn on all radars. Search the airspace within the detectable range with all your strength. All ats enter level 1 combat state." Looking at the arrangement made by the middle-aged man, Mr. K could not help but nod. It seemed that the man in front of him was not incompetent. Under the order, half of the hundreds of helicopters hovering above the army immediately separated. After releasing the black spectacled dogs they carried, they immediately formed an attack formation and rushed out of the formation, flying straight to the airspace locked by the radar. Not long after, the helicopters in the front had already discovered an unknown target that had broken into the army's alert airspace. "Report. Target found." The middle-aged man immediately asked, "Fighter?" "No." Our helicopters did not answer. "Just wait. We are communicating now." The operator frowned and immediately increased the communication power to the maximum and connected the communication to the external setting. "This is Lars Arnold. Target confirmed. This is at? How is it possible? How can it fly in the sky? So fast. We can't keep up with its speed. Cha. Hanold has been hit. So fast. The enemy's speed is so fast. We can't catch its figure at all. Request fighter support. Request fighter support." The communication from the front made the middle-aged man stunned. "And at that can fly? What kind of joke is this?" The middle-aged man seemed to be unable to keep his face and roared a few times. The operator could only brace himself and show the signal feedback from the front line to the middle-aged man. With this, the middle-aged man became silent. The 50 helicopters sent out actually lost 10 in this short period of time. How is this possible? According to the radar's monitoring, it is just a target. Can you show the image of the front line? Quick, let me see who it is. The middle-aged man thought that his face was slapped, especially when the representative of the partner that was valued by the Maruji first runner-up stood next to him. Yes. However, before the sweating operator could complete this work, the unidentified flying AT broke into the AT Army's airspace. This time, there was no need for the operator's reminder. The middle-aged man immediately gave the order of full air defense, striving to kill the enemy who gave him a slap in the face in the shortest time possible. However, the vicious middle-aged man didn't know that the man standing next to him revealed a trace of strangeness under the mask. The white gold paint, the familiar gorgeous patterns on the ice-cold armor, and the pair of gorgeous light wings. With just one look, he could recognize its identity. Lancelot. As he muttered the name in an almost inaudible voice, his eyes that were covered by the mask flashed with a glimmer of light. As expected, the vastness of this world is far beyond my imagination. Let's not talk about how much the masked man was shocked by Lancelot's appearance. At this moment, the sky was Lancelot's battlefield. Under the command of the commander, the remaining helicopters immediately launched into the encirclement of Lancelot after releasing the black spectacled dogs they carried. They were in groups of 3, with standard combat units as the main force, and with the assistance of the command system, they launched wave after wave of attacks toward Lancelot. Da-da-da-da-da. In front of him was a machine gun barrage fired by 3 helicopter squads. Lancelot raised his left hand, and the radiation energy shield immediately blocked the barrage. Crackle! In the continuous burst of sparks on the radiation energy shield, 12 helicopters quickly flanked Lancelot from behind, and took advantage of the opportunity when Lancelot was restrained by the barrage of friendly aircraft to quickly lock onto Lancelot. Then, the rocket attached to the side of the helicopter was launched. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! Dozens of tails of smoke swept across the sky and rushed behind Lancelot in the blink of an eye. The next moment, the explosion that was enough to destroy everything swallowed Lancelot in an instant. Rumble in the billowing flames, there was still a low echo echoing. Success? Everyone was watching the gradually blooming ball of fire. But the masked man knew that Lancelot would not be blown up so easily. Roar! At this moment, the roar of a ferocious beast that resounded through the sky suddenly sounded, and an azure lightning bolt appeared from the horizon in front without warning, and in the blink of an eye, it had already plunged into the formation formed by thousands of black spectacled hounds. Boom! This azure lightning did not stop. Instead, its speed increased by 30%, as if it was going to set off a storm in the formation of the black spectacled hounds that was enough to overturn all of them. In fact, that was the case. Wherever the azure lightning passed, a huge gust of wind was stirred up without exception, and most of the black spectacled hounds that had yet to react were directly overturned to the ground. A large number of black spectacled hounds fell along the path of the azure lightning like falling dominoes. It was not until the azure lightning circled around the formation of the black spectacled hounds that they were barely able to get out of the predicament of being overturned by the gust of wind. However, in front of this large group of black spectacled hounds that were overturned, the azure lightning finally revealed its true appearance. One head, a huge steel lion. Roar! Another lion's roar resounded through the sky. Chapter 272. Under the morning sun, the steel lion in blue armor looked down at the AT army below the hillside. At this moment, in the eyes of this steel lion, the AT army, which could destroy a large city for most ordinary people, was as ridiculous as a kitten. Lion! Lion! How is this possible? How can there be such a huge lion in this world? The huge figure of the predator lion and the low roar that sounded like thunder made the black-spectacled dogs near it subconsciously take a few steps back. Especially for the pilots sitting in the cockpit of the black-spectacled hound. Under the zoomed-in lens of the eye patch, they could clearly see the cold golden eyes of the predator's long-toothed lion. Panic immediately surged like a tide. What? How is this possible? Our empire has never made such a huge thing? What is this? A huge weapon? A biological weapon? The middle-aged man also looked at the predator lion on the screen in a daze. In his knowledge, whether it was the Empire, the Empire's sworn enemy, or even the Mathiara Church that ran rampant in the entire Milky Way, there had never been news of such a huge weapon. The predator lion. Just when the members of the Empire army, including the middle-aged man, were shocked by the appearance of the predator lion, the masked man named Mr. K standing next to him slowly said a name. The predator lion? Mr. K, do you know the name of this huge weapon? The middle-aged man seemed to have caught a life-saving straw at this moment and quickly walked off the stage, according to Mr. K's words. Mr. K nodded slowly. I know a little. This lion's name is the predator lion. But then again, this is the first time I've seen it appear with my own eyes. Commander, if I were you, I'd better withdraw now. Mr. K smiled and made a suggestion that made the middle-aged man somewhat tempted but unacceptable. The middle-aged man's expression changed, but in the end, he did not choose the masked man's suggestion. Because he knew that if he retreated under the threat of this huge weapon of unknown origin without even getting close to the coffin, what awaited him would be an internal investigation from the Empire. That would be an investigation that would be enough to destroy his family and kill him. Everyone attack. Whether it's the helicopter unit or the Cobra dogs, I don't care what you do, use all your ammunition and fire at that monster. In an instant, this command was undoubtedly an all-out attack. It immediately pushed the black-spectacled hounds, who had just shown signs of retreating, to the opposite side of the long-toothed lions. Attack! Attack! A black-bespectacled canine captain gritted his teeth and took the lead to launch the first attack at the Orion lion. His forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his forehead was full of cold sweat. Da-da-da-da-da! The roar of the machine gun tore through the air, becoming the first sound of the battle. However, before this squad leader's attack could become the bugle horn to summon the entire army to attack, the target he wanted to attack suddenly disappeared before his eyes. Who? In the blink of an eye, the wind blew. Then, there was a loud sound of metal clashing. Bang! The roar of the machine gun stopped abruptly. At the same time, under the gaze of many black-spectacled hounds, the black-spectacled hound piloted by the squad leader who launched the first attack turned into fragments and scattered messily on the desert under his feet. And the culprit that turned the squad leader's black-spectacled hound into fragments was the Orion lion that suddenly rushed in front of him. With just one claw, the black-spectacled hound was like a toy block piled up by a child. It easily disintegrated and turned into flying flowers. Monster! At this moment, the panic quickly spread among the pilots who witnessed the black-spectacled hound squad leader being smashed into pieces. As the panic grew, some people chose to use all their strength and tried to kill the Orion lion that easily smashed the black-spectacled hound into pieces. Da-da-da-da-da! Dong! 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 Heavy machine gun, anti-tank gun, or the rocket launcher on the shoulder, they crazily poured towards the European hunting lion. However, not a single bullet, cannonball, or even rocket managed to hit the Panthera lion. Before the barrage of bullets could reach the Orion lion turned around and turned into lightning again. It left the place and rushed to the flank of the black-spectacled hound. So fast, sir. Our attacks can't hit that monster. Ah! Help! Don't come over! Crack! Monster! Come on! Ah! In just a few minutes, The entire communication channel was filled with calls for help, screams, and begging for mercy. The middle-aged man's forehead was already covered in cold sweat. As the struggle on his face became more and more obvious, he gritted his teeth. "Helicopter unit, what are you doing? Go support the black-spectacled hounds." Rumble. In the sky, there was a rumbling sound of propellers stirring the air. The helicopter unit that arrived late finally caught up with the Orion Lion's speed when the morale of the black-spectacled hound was about to be destroyed. Dong dong dong. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As soon as dozens of helicopters captured the movement trajectory of the Orion Lion, they immediately launched a fierce attack from the top to the bottom. Their attack was not comparable to that of the black-spectacled hounds. Compared to the black-spectacled hounds on the ground, who had to worry about avoiding hitting their teammates, these helicopters soaring in the sky were much more reckless, because, in their field of vision, in addition to the Orion Lion, there were only the black-spectacled hounds that had been smashed and scattered by the Orion Lion. Dang 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 dang. The bullets fired by the helicopters finally hit the Orion Lion's blue armor, but they only produced meaningless sparks. They did not penetrate the Orion Lion's armor at all, and there was no sign of shattering it. The rockets that followed were not as lucky as the bullet. The Orion Lion only made a slight and rapid turn, causing the many rockets fired by the helicopter unit to miss. They fell to the ground and exploded helplessly. What's going on? What a hard armor! Hey! Split into 2 teams and surround it. The captain of the helicopter unit frowned and immediately issued an order that was in line with the current situation. However, this order was not carried out, because the moment the helicopter unit separated, 2 black shadows descended from the sky without warning and directly blew up the pilot plane that took the lead to separate and surround it. Boom! In the midst of the explosion of fire, a pair of light wings quietly spread out. How is this possible? Isn't that the airframe that was blown up by our helicopter unit? How can it still appear on the battlefield alive and kicking? The middle-aged man's eyes were about to pop out. With the appearance of Lancelot and the Orion Lion one after another, he realized that the situation in front of him was not as easy as he and even the upper echelons of the Maruji clan had imagined. While they were self-righteous and arrogant, a factor that was enough to affect the development of the entire situation quietly grew to the point where it could change the entire situation. It was like, back then, the untouchable person named Ziliguchiobi had appeared out of thin air. The hook claw attacked across the sky, the light wings flapped. Every time the radiation vibration sword slashed, it represented the fall of a helicopter. All of this was seen by Mr. K's eyes. So strong. Stronger than before. Lancelot. Mr. K's gaze moved away from Lancelot, who was rampaging among the helicopter unit, and fell on the Orion Lion, who was wreaking havoc among the army of black-spectacled hounds in the same way. 1 helicopter, 1 lion. Although they are very powerful, they can't defeat this army in a short time. Moreover, as long as this incompetent man slightly remembers the qualities that a commander should have, then the attack from the rear will probably fall from the sky. The eyes under the mask flickered a few times, and suddenly, a sharp light burst out. Yes, I see. There was no doubt that Mr. K had guessed a possibility. However, when Mr. K's gaze turned to the middle-aged man's face, which was covered in sweat, he fell silent. Forget it. This man doesn't deserve my reminder. Just treat it as a greeting gift for our reunion. The masked man secretly laughed in his heart. Even if you don't know of my existence, Ray Minkai. Sir. The helicopter unit has lost all signals. Our helicopters have all been destroyed. What? How long has it been? It hasn't even been 10 minutes, and dozens of our helicopters have been destroyed? Who the hell is this guy? Instinctively, the middle-aged man looked at the silent masked man, Mr. K. Commander. I'm only here on behalf of the organization to deal with the harvest. As for the current situation, as a technician, I can't give any effective advice." Mr. K naturally knew what the middle-aged man was thinking, but he did not want to get involved in this mess. Especially when he realized that the person standing opposite him was a familiar machine, a steel beast, and even the Night Protector, Mr. K, the mysterious masked man, immediately wanted to retreat. "But Mr. K, if this continues, the cooperation between the Empire and your organization will be in danger." "Danger?" A few laughs came from under the mask. Mr. K said nonchalantly, "Commander, you're exaggerating. The cooperation between our organization and the Empire is not what you think. It's just a failure. We still have another chance, don't we? Now, what you need to do is to gather as much information as possible about these unknown enemies." After that, Mr. K said, "This is the only advice I can give from my position. Commander, it's up to you to decide what to do." In fact, the middle-aged man did not have much time to think. In the sky, Lancelot, who had destroyed all the helicopters, was now free to cooperate with the rampaging European lion on the ground to harvest the black spectacled dogs around it. If the battle went on a little longer, the command vehicle that the middle-aged man and Mr. K were in would be exposed to the sharp claws of the steel lion. If that happened, it would be extremely dangerous. All of a sudden, an urgent report came from the rear, and the middle-aged man finally made a decision. "Her report. There's a battle in the rear, and we've been attacked by the enemy. We've suffered heavy losses, and the number of enemies is unknown." "Unknown number? What the hell are you doing? The Empire spent a lot of money to feed you. How can you be so useless?" After the middle-aged man vented all his pent-up anger and panic by yelling, he looked at Mr. K while panting heavily. "I'm afraid this is a diversionary tactic." Mr. K smiled and said with a hint of flattery, "I'm sure the commander has already guessed it. The commander should have a plan for what to do next." The middle-aged man looked at Mr. K's mask and sighed heavily. "Pass down the order. Take turns covering the retreat. Don't get caught up in the battle. Commander, this is the right choice. When we get back, I'll report this to the organization. I believe the Empire won't make things difficult for you." "I hope so." At this moment, behind the Marugi army of black spectacled dogs, the green spectacled dogs and the grayish-red spiders covered each other and formed a crossfire formation as they charged into the midst of the black spectacled dogs. The enemy is retreating. Killigu, be careful." Titania immediately noticed the change in the surroundings and instinctively warned Killigu. Yes. The green spectacled dog that Killigu was piloting waved its fist and smashed the black spectacled dogs down from the sand dune. It stopped on the sand dune and silently watched the black spectacled dogs in groups of 2 or 3 as they took turns covering the retreat formation. Further behind the black spectacled dogs was the battlefield where the steel lion and Lancelot were. "We won." Killigu retracted his gaze from the battlefield and looked at the direction of the coffin. If the enemy didn't come back in the next period of time, then there should be enough time to place Fianna's coffin. Compared to Killigu and Titania, Ray Minkai, who had control of the air, was the first to discover the enemy's retreat. State 0, the enemy is retreating. So what? It seemed that it had been too long since he came out in his lion form. State 0 seemed to have gotten to his head. He seemed to be indifferent to Ray Minkai's reminder. Find the enemy's commander, so that he won't come back and cause trouble. Ray Minkai pushed his hand and Lancelot's light wings suddenly moved. Lancelot flew 100 meters away and began to search for the enemy's headquarters. However, the enemy's movements were very fast. In the rolling sand, Ray Minkai didn't seem to find any worthy targets. They ran away so quickly? Just as Lancelot was looking around but was unable to find any valuable targets, a very strange target suddenly appeared on Lancelot's infrared radar. Without hesitation, Lancelot's light wings flapped and shot out countless light rain, directly covering the strange target. Da-da-da-da! The dense light rain flashed and a series of explosions rumbled, engulfing all the targets in the area covered by the light rain. The sound waves rumbled. The violent wind set off by the explosion blew up countless yellow sand. In the distance, a pair of eyes hidden under a mask retracted their gaze. "Thank you, Ray Minkai." Chapter 273. Roar! The sun once again shone on the desert and burned the desert. The huge steel lion raised its mighty head and roared towards the heavens and earth. Another roar symbolizing the victory. The battle was over. After the area where the commander was suspected to be was covered by the light rain shot by Lancelot, the remaining black-spectacled dogs immediately fell into a state of chaos and fled in all directions. "It's over." This was the sigh of Barnilla, who had risked his life to run over from Geelf City to check the situation after the battle ended. Perhaps he had imagined how Killigoo would go on a killing spree and get rid of the Black Lightning Brigade that had come to offend Geoffrey City. However, he had never imagined that this battle, which he had thought would be a 1-3 battle, would turn into a 1-1 battle with a 1-4 battle with a 1-1 disparity in strength. Moreover, the huge steel lion standing in the center of the deep pit did not look like an artifact that could be created by the Empire or the Church. "Barnilla, you came just in time." Just as Barnilla was lying on the edge of the deep pit and looking towards the center of the coffin, Ray Minkai had already discovered his existence. Not long after, Barnilla stood in front of the coffin in surprise and stared blankly at Fianna, who was sleeping in the coffin forever. You're saying that all these things were caused by Fianna?" Killigoo was silent and only looked at Ray Minkai. And Titania was the same. Among all the people present, only Ray Minkai knew what happened before. First of all, the Black Lightning Brigade should have nothing to do with the coffin. Otherwise, from the beginning, the enemy we would have to face would not be as simple as the black-spectacled dogs. Ray Minkai slightly glanced sideways and found that the long-fanged lion had turned back into a white cat and circled around the coffin a few times. But Ray Minkai did not ask. After the coffin fell, the Black Lightning Brigade, including the Church's troops that were chasing Titania, should have been wiped out in an instant. Otherwise, there wouldn't be an empty at station that started up for no reason. Hearing Ray Minkai's words, Barnilla was stunned. He subconsciously looked around at the wasteland that was filled with the remains of the black-spectacled hounds and earth spiders. It seemed that Barnilla was a little afraid that these corpses that should have been dead would suddenly jump up. "They're completely dead. Don't worry, Barnilla." Ray Minkai smiled and looked at State Zero, the white cat that had jumped to the top of the coffin. "How is it, State Zero?" The white cat, State Zero, squinted its eyes slightly and lay on top of the coffin. Its slender tail was swaying slowly at this moment. "There are two ways." The white cat State Zero gestured with its paws and said slowly under Barnilla's surprised gaze. He spoke. "Cat. Little brother Kai, your cat spoke." While Barnilla was surprised, he did not forget to look at the calm faces of Xyligoo and Titania. "Xyligoo, your cat spoke." But the surprised Barnilla realized that Xyligoo was not surprised that the white cat, State Zero, could speak. Instead, he was wondering why Barnilla was so surprised. This was the message that Barnilla read from Xyligoo's calm eyes. "Sigh. Alright. I really can't compare to you guys. Continue speaking, Master Cat." In the end, Barnilla was defeated by Xyligoo and Titania, who were so careless that they could almost ignore everything that went against common sense. "Are you surprised that I can speak? Human, there are many secrets in this world that you can't touch." The white cat, State Zero, mocked Barnilla a little and continued to gesture with its paws. "The first way. Then let me take out the fragments buried in this woman's body. But if I do so, this woman's body will probably disintegrate on the spot and disappear from this world." As soon as the white cat finished speaking, a murderous aura suddenly rose. Hey, I haven't finished speaking. Don't be in a hurry to kill me. Although you can't kill me. After all, no matter how strong your fate is, you can't kill the world. The white cat, State Zero, laughed and was not disturbed by Xylagu's murderous aura at all. Continue speaking, State Zero. When the white cat, State Zero, said the first way, Ray Minkai had already guessed what the next way was. In the end, this might be the tacit understanding between Ray Minkai and the white cat. As long as Ray Minkai slightly expressed his thoughts, the white cat, State Zero, might cooperate with him tacitly. Right now, wasn't it the same? The white cat, State Zero, gently lowered its paws. The sharp claws hidden in the thick meat pads slowly scraped the layer of cold metal surface under its paws. I know you guys want to save this woman. Therefore, the second way is to bring this coffin back to our hometown and let our researchers study how to liberate this woman while deciphering the technology on it. As soon as the white cat, State Zero, finished speaking, Xylagu and Titania's sharp eyes simultaneously looked at Ray Minkai. At this moment, it was undoubtedly the time for Xylagu and Titania to speak frankly. The two of them, who had always been suspicious of Ray Minkai's intentions, finally understood Ray Minkai's goal. Of course, this was what Xylagu and Titania thought. Your target is Xylagu? Titania spoke first. Her gaze became sharper, as if as long as Ray Minkai admitted this point on the spot, she would immediately kill Ray Minkai. Don't be nervous, Titania. Your body can't take much of the impact anymore. As soon as Ray Minkai saw the undisguised killing intent in Titania's eyes, he immediately spread out his hands to show that he had no ill intentions. Then, Ray Minkai didn't care if Titania responded to his words. He turned his head to look at the silent Xylagu. Xylagu Chubi. Someone who cannot be contacted. As long as you still exist in this world, you and the people around you will be attacked and even hunted down because of this name. Without a doubt, this resounding reputation is a curse for you. As he spoke, Ray Minkai noticed something different in Xylagu's calm gaze. He seemed to be wavering. Xylagu, if this world curses you, then how about going to a new world? One where no one else knows you except me. Needless to say, knowing the reputation, curse, and even sin you carry. As he said this, Ray Minkai raised his head slightly and looked at the white cat, State Zero. Moreover, this big block, and Fianna, who is sleeping inside, I may have a way to solve it. Also, I can solve the problem of her and Titania. At the same time, Ray Minkai straightforwardly pointed out Xylagu and Titania's current situation. Time passed bit by bit. Barnilla opened his mouth a few times, but he realized that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't say a word. He could only silently look at Xylagu, who was standing beside the coffin, thinking about something. Is what you said true? After a long silence, Titania spoke first. Indeed, Titania had reached the end of her life. Although she didn't end up dying in the chaotic battle like in the original novel, where she finally died in Xylagu's arms, the scythe of the Grim Reaper hanging above Titania's head was still about to chop off Titania's neck. You can only trust me, Titania, Ray Minkai said lightly. Titania was silent. In order to continue living, she didn't hesitate to take the risk of being hunted down and went through all the research centers of the church's surviving warriors. Therefore, Titania could be said to have made a choice. Now it was up to Xylagu. Xylagu slowly raised his head, walked to the side of the coffin, and reached out his hand to touch the glass, as if he was caressing Fianna's sleeping face. I'll go. A simple and calm answer. Pa. In the darkness, a light lit up, exposing a man standing in the darkness to everyone's sight. The man's face was mainly black, and his expression was neither sad nor happy. His body was covered in a black robe. Mr. K. Although you're a newcomer to the organization, you failed your first mission, causing our organization's precious sample to fall into the hands of the enemy. What are you thinking about this sin? In the darkness, a thunderous voice rolled out, constantly echoing in this pitch-black space. Meritorious service will be rewarded, and mistakes will be investigated. That's all. The masked man's voice didn't change at all. It was still calm. Meritorious service will be rewarded, and mistakes will be investigated. Since you've said so, then we'll do as you wish. As soon as the thunderous voice fell, the pitch-black space in front of the masked man was suddenly torn apart by cracks. As the dense, wandering cracks rapidly spread, the pitch-black space in front of the masked man shattered. In the mirage that seemed to be refracted by glass, a staircase appeared. The staircase, supported by countless gears, appeared one by one in front of the masked man, and it continued to extend forward until it connected with the light spot that appeared in the sky. On the side of the staircase, supported by countless gears, there were countless night figures holding sharp swords erected. Mr. K. If you still want to join the organization, and still want to use your real name to inherit your legacy, then step on this staircase and become our comrade. Buzz buzz! A buzzing sound rang out, and the countless gears supporting the flight of stairs immediately began to revolve. The masked man knew that as long as he stepped on this staircase, he would definitely be crushed by the countless gears if his footsteps were not steady. Moreover, the masked man's gaze moved up and looked at the night figures holding sharp swords. This was also a weapon that could inadvertently launch a fatal blow. I suggest that you don't take this path. It's just a mere loss. Suddenly, a voice that the masked man was familiar with, but full of hatred, sounded. Dr. Zasali. The masked man muttered the name of the man who appeared beside him in a low voice. That's me. Your Majesty, please welcome back. Inadvertently, the man in the white coat who appeared in front of the masked man bowed respectfully to him. I'm not your Majesty. The masked man glanced at the man in the white coat, and then continued to look at the staircase that led to the sky. Your Majesty. This is the staircase of 7 words. As long as you successfully climb this staircase, you will become one of the 7 knights of our organization. Your Majesty, have you thought it through? Dr. Zasali's voice became lower and lower. The masked man was silent, but he resolutely took a step forward and walked to the front of the staircase. If I hadn't thought it through, I wouldn't have taken the initiative to come here. Zasali turned around and looked at the masked man's back with a smile, but he didn't say anything. Only when he saw the masked man raise his hand and take off the emotionless mask on his face did he reveal a trace of surprise. Your Majesty, it seems that you've made your decision. No. I'm not your Majesty. I'm just a pitiful person who wants to find his sister. Clang. The emotionless mask was casually thrown to the ground by the man. Then, the man raised his right foot and slowly but firmly stepped on the first step of the staircase. At this moment, a female scream suddenly sounded. Wait, Luluccio, what do you want to do? In the midst of the scream, a girl in a black dress with long green hair scattered messily rushed out from the darkness. The man stopped and smiled slightly. I was wondering who it was. So it's you. See. Luluccio, what are you trying to do? Even if it's to find Lilina, you don't have to go to this extent. Do you think Lilina will forgive you after you find her? C quickly walked past Dr. Zasali and rushed to the man's side. Probably not. Although a trace of frustration flashed in his eyes, the man's eyes still flashed with determination. But there are some things that must be done, and I must do them. See. Do you still remember our contract? Now is the time for me to fulfill the contract. The man turned his head and reached out to stroke the messy hair by C's ear, then resolutely turned around and stepped on the staircase that extended upwards in front of him, called the staircase of 7 words. The man's footsteps landed steadily on the first step. C's eyes widened slightly. She knew that the man in front of her could no longer be stopped. The only thing that could stop him was perhaps death. Dr. Zasali, who was standing further behind, bowed slightly to the man who stepped on the staircase of 7 words. Ka. The second step. The moment the man stepped on the second step of the staircase, the bust of the knight standing on both sides of the staircase immediately trembled. Sharp swords. The swords in their hands also began to tremble. It was as if they wanted to erase from this world the rude person who dared to step on this staircase and offend the staircase of 7 words. Seeing this, the young man in a black robe, named Lu Lucio, slightly raised the corner of his mouth and loudly cursed the curse in his heart. The world is the shell, we are the chicks. Chapter 274. At the bottom of the stairs, Dr. Cisali stared at the figure who had stepped onto the stairs that led to the sky. This was the stairway to heaven known as the Stairway of 7 Words. There was a legend about the Stairway of 7 Words within the organization. No matter who it was, as long as they successfully stepped onto the Stairway of 7 Words, they would obtain unimaginable power. However, this was nothing more than nonsense. In fact, the organization was only using this seemingly beautiful stairway of heaven, which was guarded by a terrifying killing machine, to punish criminals who had committed mistakes within the organization and even betrayed the organization. Now, because of his failure in his first mission, the newcomer Lu Lucio Lamperugi, who had stood by and watched during the process, had also become one of the many punished people. But Dr. Cisali found that Lu Lucio Lamperugi, who had killed him with his own hands, had an inexplicable passion for the Stairway of Heaven, which had a terrifying legend in the organization. It was as if, from the very beginning, he had been aiming for the stairway to heaven. Dr. Cisali also noticed a hint of this from the conversation between C. and Lu Lucio just now. However, did this have anything to do with him? The answer was very clear. No matter what Lu Lucio's plan was, for Dr. Cisali, this was just an interlude in his long research career. Previously, the reason why he spoke out to dissuade Lu Lucio was because he was acquainted with the former Emperor Lu Lucio. Now, he had done what he needed to do. All that was left was to silently watch the whole thing unfold. Ka! The sharp sound of the wind exploded, and a cold light erupted above the Stairway of 7 Words, slashing down the stairs with the force of Mount Tai. Lu Lucio! Be careful! C. couldn't help but warn Lu Lucio, who was stepping onto the 3rd step. However, it was too late. Boom! The giant sword, which was nearly 1 meter wide, slashed down on the 3rd step without any hindrance. In the blink of an eye, Lu Lucio, who was trying hard to step up the stairs, was submerged. Lu Lucio, in a panic, C. subconsciously took a step forward to check, but he was unexpectedly blocked by an invisible wall. At this time, behind the wide sword blade, Lu Lucio's figure quietly appeared again, and stepped onto a new step. At the same time, C. could vaguely hear Lu Lucio muttering to himself, "If we can't break out of our shells, we chicks will definitely die, 1 step, another step." With every step Lu Lucio took, the knight statues on both sides of the stairs would swing their great swords at him. However, these attacks, which were enough to crush one or even several adults, could not hurt Lu Lucio at all. After every slash, Lu Lucio would always be able to step onto a new step unscathed, and continue to move towards the top while mumbling. 10, 11, 12, 13 Dr. Cisali, who was watching from the sidelines, finally showed a trace of surprise when he saw Lu Lucio step onto the 14th step. Among the many sinners punished by the organization, the one who could last the longest under the sword of these knight statues was only the 13th step. At the bottom of these 13 steps were countless souls that had died tragically. The Savior really exists? Suddenly, Dr. Cisali remembered the plan that the dead emperor insisted on. Heavy, incomparably heavy. With every step, it was as if a mountain would descend from the void and press down on Lu Lucio's shoulders. Moreover, the sharp sound of the wind that constantly attacked above his head was constantly eroding Lu Lucio's will. As long as Lu Lucio relaxed a little, the giant sword of the knight's statue would definitely cut him into pieces. So this is the curse you speak of? Right. Lu Lucio e vai e Britannia. Lu Lucio raised his head and looked firmly at somewhere high above. We meet again. Inspector Ray Minkai, yes, and our cute little cat. He did not expect that the person who responded to Ray Minkai's call for support would be the Macross Windchime. Naturally, it was Hudson and the others who came to greet Ray Minkai. I'm not a little cat. You old man. Although they were acquaintances, when it touched the taboo, the white cat State Zero unceremoniously changed back into the form of a snow-white lion and roared at Hudson. Ah! You're still full of energy. Your Excellency State Zero. I was rude. Hudson laughed and easily deflected State Zero's threat. Captain Hudson, I'm sorry. I remember that your mission shouldn't be in this part of the universe. Although Ray Minkai felt relieved that Hudson and the Windchime were here, he was also a little confused. Unexpectedly, Hudson sighed. We were chasing a criminal. Unfortunately, he escaped. That was another matter altogether. Now, why don't I introduce your new friend to you? I believe that in the near future we will become comrades. As Hudson spoke, he looked at Ziliku and Titania, who were guarding the coffin, as well as Barnilla and his family, who were surrounding Ziliku and Titania. After the arrival of the Macross Windchime, Ziliku and Titania's departure was a foregone conclusion. No matter how Barnilla and Cosina tried to persuade them, the result was the same and could not be changed. However, after Goth Dad looked at Lei Minkai silently, he reached out and patted Lei Minkai's back. From the beginning, I felt that you were not simple. But this is good too. I believe that you have the ability to free Ziliku from that damned fate. Yes, I will do it. This, I promise you in the name of the Queen's Knight's Protector. It was rare for Ray Minkai to make a promise in the name of the Knight's Protector for the first time. The Queen's Protector Knight. Goth Dad looked up thoughtfully at the Macross Windchime hovering in the sky above Golfy City and nodded his head silently. Ever since this huge warship appeared in the sky without any warning, the clamor around Golfy City stopped. Such a change made Goth Dad come up with some guesses, but at the same time, he was relieved. To be able to do this, he believed that they could free Ziliku from that endless fate. Captain, it's time to return. After Feng Ling Er's image appeared from the holographic projection, it was time for the Macross to depart. Goodbye, Ziliku. Take care of your body. After Barnilla's family said their goodbyes, the transport ship carrying Ray Minkai, Ziliku, Titania, and the coffin slowly lifted off and returned to the Macross Windchime. Later, under Hudson's lead, Ray Minkai, Ziliku, and Titania came to the bridge. Sir Ziliku, please be at ease. We will take good care of the coffin and Lady Fianna's body. Adjusting his hat, Hudson made a promise to Ziliku before looking at Ray Minkai. Captain, don't mind me. On this warship, you are the commander. Ray Minkai shook his head, indicating that he would not give orders to this warship. Ha 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 ha. Thank you, Sir Inspector. Then, Macross Windchime, set sail. After leaving the atmosphere, start the hyperspace transition program. Target: City of Stars. Order confirmed. Macross Windchime, set sail. A few hours later, the Macross Windchime successfully entered the hyperspace route. Lei Minkai felt the familiar pressure that was unique to traveling through the hyperspace route. He turned around and looked at Tsirigu and Titania sitting next to him. Ziliku, Titania, do you feel any discomfort there? It is said that some people will feel discomfort when entering the hyperspace route for the first time. Ziliku shook his head slightly, only turning his head to look at the silent Titania. At this moment, although Titania did not look any different on the surface, in reality, the number of artificial organs in her body that were on the verge of death due to the rapid deterioration of the artificial blood was increasing. Warning: this lady's body is about to enter a state of death. She must be treated immediately. Suddenly, Feng Ling, who was focused on controlling the windchime to enter the hyperspace transition, suddenly turned her head to look at Titania and issued a warning. Start the treatment immediately. Feng Ling, you have already prepared the treatment plan? Yes. We can start the treatment now. Let's begin. Although Titania's near-death situation could be considered a sudden situation, it was within Ray Minkai's expectations. Before boarding the Macross windchime, Ray Minkai had always been worried that Titania would suddenly die due to the deterioration of the artificial blood. But now, this worry was no longer a worry. Ziliku, who stood up from his seat, silently watched a bunch of medical robots move Titania in an orderly manner under Feng Ling's command, and send her to the infirmary. Cold-faced man over there is no need to worry. This lady is only in a state of death because she used inferior artificial blood. As long as the artificial blood is changed in time and the latest organs are replaced, she will be out of danger. While sending Titania out of the bridge, Feng Ling looked Ziliku up and down, this cold-faced man who had not spoken a single word from start to finish. Thank you. In a rare moment, Ziliku opened his mouth to thank everyone. Then, he turned around and left the bridge, following behind the medical robot. TSK. Looks like Sir Inspector has recruited a man who is not good with words this time. Indeed. But he is worthy of our trust. Ray Minkai's words made Hudson nod his head in agreement. After going through life and death on the battlefield for so many years, Hudson could naturally tell who was a trustworthy comrade. But then again, congratulations to Sir Inspector for obtaining a perfect success on your first mission. Ray Minkai shook his head slightly in response to Hudson's congratulations. It can't be considered a success. Although the item has been found, there are still some doubts that have not been resolved. Oh? There's such a thing? Yes. The appearance of the fragment is very strange. Especially at the end, there was a sudden reaction that made me even more concerned. I'm afraid that I will only be able to get an answer when we return to the City of Stars. Seeing Ray Minkai's doubtful gaze, Hudson nodded his head in agreement. Although he was already the captain of the Macross windchime, and had been in this universe for a very long time, there were still many secrets that he did not know about hidden in the starry sky. After this, they did not speak on the way back. On the way back to the City of Stars, Ray Minkai did not see Ziligu appear in any place other than the treatment room or the storage room where the coffin was placed. Even his daily meals were delivered by robot. This man with a cold face but a warm heart was probably unable to let go of these two women who had affected his whole life. Fortunately, Ziligu's wait was not in vain. Half an hour before the end of the hyperspace transition, Titania's treatment finally came to an end. Although Titania had already woken up and could move about, there were still more important surgeries that had to wait until she reached the City of Stars before they could begin. Thank you. Moving her limbs, Titania felt her originally sluggish but now incomparably light body, and sincerely thanked Ray Minkai and Feng Ling. There's no need to thank me. This is a rescue between comrades. Feng Ling giggled, not taking the matter of her snatching Titania from the hands of the Grim Reaper seriously. Is that so, comrades? Titania muttered to herself, before sincerely thanking again. Thank you, Ray Minkai. No. This is something you decide on your own. If you didn't believe me, I'm afraid you wouldn't be standing here right now. Ray Minkai waved his hand and, like Feng Ling, did not take it seriously. Titania nodded slightly, looking at the man who had been standing silently by her side from start to finish, Ziligu. Ziligu. I'm afraid my matter has already been settled. Then, what about Fianna? Hearing that, Ziligu raised his head slightly, looking at Ray Minkai. Fianna? If it's her, she needs to return to the City of Stars to be settled. Ray Minkai secretly sighed. Why did he have to say something he clearly knew? Could it be that Ziligu also had moments of hesitation? So that's how it is. Titania shifted her gaze, looking at Feng Ling. She remembered that when she was about to die, it was this little girl who had immediately noticed something was wrong with her. I'm Feng Ling. Hello, Titania. Is there anything I can help you with? Seeing Titania's gaze, Feng Ling immediately introduced herself. Hello, Feng Ling. Can you take me to see Fianna? Okay. Just like that, Titania's seemingly incomparably thorny problem was mostly resolved under Feng Ling's operation. Next, as long as they reached the City of Stars, Titania's problem with her body would probably vanish like smoke, and would no longer be a problem for her survival. What remained was the problem of how to arrange Ziligu and Titania. In fact, Ray Minkai already had a preliminary plan for Ziligu and Titania's arrangement. For example, Ziligu could become the instructor of the Queen's personal knight regiment, and Titania could become the assistant instructor, assisting Ziligu in his training. Although this arrangement was somewhat abrupt for Ziligu and Titania, it was believed that these two would not have too many objections. After all, in this Lu Luxio's world, no one knew of the existence of Ziligu Chubi and Titania. Chapter 275. Welcoming Ray Minkai and the others was the research team led by the Ministry of Justice's Shi Hui. What a surprise! I didn't expect your first mission to find such a big guy. With a chocolate bar in her mouth and her hands in her pockets, the woman clicked her tongue in wonder as she looked at the coffin that was carefully removed from the Macross windchime. I didn't expect it either. Ray Minkai laughed bitterly. In the beginning, Lei Minkai only used the process of the destruction guardian deity that he encountered in the Luluxiu world as a reference to deduce and prepare for what would happen next. In the end, he discovered that the existence of the fragment had already merged with the coffin and Fianna, who was sleeping inside. Ka! The Ministry of Justice's Shi Hui gently bit off the chocolate bar in her mouth and shook it as she said, although it was a bit unexpected, it was still within expectations. However, I'm afraid that this big guy won't be able to completely analyze it in a short amount of time. After a pause, Shi Hui turned around and looked at Qili Gu, who was standing at the side, and remained silent as usual. Mr. Iceberg, although I'm not sure what relationship you have with the woman inside the big guy. However, based on the current preliminary test results, it will take some time to completely analyze it and start the separation plan. Hearing this, Qili Gu's gaze fell on the coffin that was surrounded by many researchers. In the end, he slowly nodded his head. Seeing this, the Ministry of Justice's Shi Hui revealed a smile. Thank you for your understanding. Don't worry. Although my schedule is full, the most important thing right now is to completely analyze this coffin. Then, Shi Hui took out an electronic ID card from her pocket and handed it to Qili Gu. Oh right. Other than the woman lying in the coffin, you have another close female friend, right? I think her name is Titania. Qili Gu lowered his head and looked at the ID card in Shi Hui's hand. There seemed to be a hint of confusion in his eyes. Take it. Now, Titania's body should be able to recover to the level of daily activities. However, to recover to her original combat level, I'm afraid she will need to undergo further treatment. Ray Minkai, who was standing at the side, heard this and asked with uncertainty. Could it be that Titania's main doctor is you, doctor from the Ministry of Justice? Faced with Lei Minkai's confusion, the Ministry of Justice's Shi Hui nodded calmly. Yes. Is there a problem? Ray Minkai was at a loss for words. Although he wanted to complain in his heart, he didn't know where to start. Could it be that the Ministry of Justice's doctor was the legendary all-round doctor? Isn't this too much? Don't mind these small details. Mr. Iceberg, take this electronic ID card first. When it's time, someone will inform you to look for me. Qili Gu. Doctor. My name is Qili Chubi. After being called Mr. Iceberg by the Ministry of Justice several times, Killigu couldn't help but say his name. Then, he raised his hand and took the electronic ID card from the Ministry of Justice. Doctor, you're welcome. Although there are a lot of icebergs like you in my family, it's still better to talk to them more often. Also, the person you should thank is not me, but Ray Minkai. If he didn't find you and take the initiative to send a request for backup to the headquarters, we wouldn't know what happened there. After Hui finished speaking, she waved the chocolate bar in her hand, turned around, and left the port where the Macross Windchime was docked with her department members and the coffin. Looking at the departing figure of Hui, Chili Gu slowly retracted his gaze and looked at Ray Minkai. Kai, thank you. Then, Chili Gu turned around and walked towards the Macross Windchime. There, Titania was still undergoing a full checkup. How troublesome! White Cat State Zero suddenly appeared and jumped onto Ray Minkai's shoulder, looking in the direction of the coffin. Regretting it? Ray Minkai glanced at the White Cat State Zero. Yes, I regret it. If I didn't make this choice, I'm afraid I would have already taken back the fragment in the coffin. White Cat State Zero didn't hide its regret. Then it asked again, Kai, aren't you curious about what kind of power I'll recover after taking back the fragment? Ray Minkai raised his eyebrows and suddenly laughed. No, not curious. You! White Cat State Zero was stunned. Ha 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 ha. Alright, let's go back. You know, Chili Gu and Titania's accommodation is still not settled. After Chili Gu brought Titania out of the hospital, Ray Minkai bid farewell to Hudson and the others, and brought Chili Gu and Titania to the World Gate in the center of Star Glory City. He learned from the Ministry of Justice's Hui that when Ray Minkai set out to carry out the mission, the Lu Lucia world that he was based on had already completed the construction of the World Gate and successfully completed the connection with Star Glory City. As long as the relevant personnel had a pass, they could use this World Gate to freely travel between the Lu Lucia world and Star Glory City. In Ray Minkai's hand, there was a pass given to him by the Ministry of Justice's Hui. With this pass, Ray Minkai could bring up to 10 personnel to and from the Lu Lucia world in a single trip. This is the new world that Ray Minkai you mentioned? A world where no one knows about Chili Gu and my deeds? Sitting in the air train that connected the port and the central area, Titania's eyes flashed as she looked at the visual impact of the technological city below. This was a city that Titania had never seen before. Even when Titania was the shield of order and stood at the top of the church's combat power, she had never seen such a scene. This is the headquarters of the SFP Space Administration. The SFP Space Administration is one of the departments that I am currently working in. Its function is to send inspectors who are similar to me to travel between the various universes to find anomalies that affect the operation of the world and try to solve them. Of course, in the process of solving them, it is naturally unavoidable that some unpleasant things will happen. So, that's why I met you guys before. The SFP Space Administration? It sounds like there is an even larger force above the administration. Titania, who came from the Mathiaru Church, immediately grasped the key point. Yes. Above the administration, there is an army called Qin. But because my current position is not very high, I don't know much about the army. Ray Minkai nodded and told Titania and Chili Gu what he knew. Is that so? But this is good. According to what you said before, now Chili Gu and I can live freely in this city? Titania and Chili Gu seemed to have reached a consensus. The matter of communicating with others was all left to Titania to handle, and Chili Gu remained silent. At first glance, why does it feel like a husband following his wife's lead? Encourage me. Aren't you changing too quickly? Lei Minkai allowed these messy thoughts to run amok in his mind, but he still said, "Don't worry about it. No, it's not like that. Although I really want to let Chili Gu and Titania live freely here. However, due to the special nature of the City of Stars, The residents living in this city must pass a series of strict examinations before they can obtain the right to live here. Therefore, Chili-Gu and Titania, your residence is not in this city, but in the world where I came from. During the conversation, the air train carrying Rei Minkai and the other two arrived at the central area where the World Gate was located. Under the guidance of the personnel waiting here, they passed through the World Gate and returned to the Lucia world. A light flashed in front of his eyes, and when his vision became clear again, Rei Minkai found that he seemed to be in a very familiar place. Immediately after, before Rei Minkai could figure out where he was, a familiar figure pounced on him and threw herself into his arms. Smelling the familiar fragrance, Rei Minkai didn't need to ask to know who jumped into his arms. My Majesty the Empress, although I'm very happy that you came to greet me immediately, if people see you jump into the arms of the Night Guardian like this, I'm afraid that people will talk behind your back. Who will talk behind my back? This is my sovereign throne. Buried in Rei Minkai's arms, Euphemia said softly but proudly. It turned out that the World Gate of the Lucia world was directly built on Euphemia's throne. No wonder Euphemia jumped into Rei Minkai's arms as soon as he returned. In this throne, in addition to the busy intelligent robots maintaining the operation of the throne, there was Euphemia's confidant, the maid personally selected by Cornelia, and the personal guard knight who was transformed from many members of Department Q. Although Euphemia showed the sweetness of reuniting with her lover after a long separation, after noticing the appearance of Zirigu and Titania, Euphemia immediately returned to the role of an empress. After Euphemia gently left Rei Minkai's arms, she looked at Zirigu and Titania. Rei Minkai introduced the two to Euphemia. Your Majesty, this is Zirigu Chubby and Titania. They are the friends I made during this mission. For some reason, they suffered some misfortune in their original world, so I brought them back. After that, Rei Minkai raised his hand to his chest, bowed slightly to Euphemia, and introduced Zirigu and Titania to Zirigu and Titania. Zirigu Titania. This is the monarch I serve, Her Majesty Euphemia Le Britannia, the Empress of the Britannia Empire. Zirigu and Titania looked at each other, then bowed in unison. Greetings, Your Majesty. Although Zirigu and Titania's etiquette was somewhat offensive, Euphemia didn't want to pursue this matter because the etiquette of the guy next to them was even worse. After all, compared to obsessing over etiquette, Euphemia was more concerned about what was so outstanding about Zirigu and Titania that Rei Minkai would bring them back to this world. No need for formalities. Your Majesty Zirigu Chubby, Miss Titania. It's nice to meet you. Right now, this isn't a suitable place to talk. Come with me. Euphemia secretly glanced at Rei Minkai, then sent out a signal for the maids guarding outside to come in. She led everyone back to the parlor that had already been prepared. At first, neither of them spoke. Only when more than half of the tea was consumed did Euphemia slowly speak. Miss Titania, if it's possible, can you tell me about your past? In fact, as long as Euphemia wanted to know, Rei Minkai wouldn't refuse her request. However, compared to learning from Rei Minkai, Euphemia was more interested in her own experience. Titania put down the teacup in her hand, and looked at the remaining tea in the cup with some astonishment. Ever since she became an altered human, how long had it been since she had experienced the taste of black tea so deeply? Could it be that after being treated by those people, her body had begun to recover the feeling that a normal person should have? However, this wasn't the main point at the moment. After putting away some of her messy thoughts, Titania nodded reservedly. When facing Euphemia, the Empress of the Empire, Titania's etiquette and reservedness that she should have as the shield of order of the Mathiaru Church gradually awakened and came online. Your Majesty, I was once the shield of order of the Mathiaru Church. Everything started from that time. In Titania's narration, the entire process of the Heresy of Glory was gradually presented in front of Euphemia and Ray Minkai with Titania's low and slightly hoarse voice. Titania's narration was very attractive. Not only Euphemia, even the maids standing at the side couldn't help but be immersed in the past of this woman who had once galloped on the battlefield. Especially when they found out about Titania's feelings that she wanted to confess but was hiding in the dark, the maids all cast curious gazes at Zilligu, who had remained silent all this while and vaguely gave them pressure. How did this iceberg-like man attract such an outstanding woman like Titania? If it wasn't for the existence of the Empress Euphemia, the maids would probably be chattering nonstop. The story would eventually come to an end. Titania's narration ended when Ray Minkai appeared and brought Titania and Zilligu here. Then, Euphemia suddenly stood up from her seat and walked quickly to Titania's side. She said sincerely, "I'm sorry." She said sincerely, "Thank you very much for your generosity, Miss Titania. Now I have a presumptuous request. I wonder if Miss Titania can agree to it?" Titania was stunned, as if she hadn't recovered from Euphemia's sudden attack. "Your Majesty, this is?" Euphemia nodded slightly and said seriously, "Miss Titania, I'm sure you're right. Although this is a bit presumptuous, I sincerely extend an invitation to you and Sir Zilligu. I wonder if the two of you are willing to become the instructor and vice-instructor of my personal knight regiment?" Titania was stunned once again. She subconsciously turned around to look at Zilligu. Although Zilligu's expression was still stiff, Titania could see from his eyes that Zilligu was also stunned by Euphemia's sudden attack. Cough cough. "Zilligu, Titania. You don't have to agree to His Majesty's invitation immediately. How about this? In these few days, Zilligu, Titania, you can carefully consider carefully before giving an answer. Also, whether you agree to His Majesty's invitation or not, Zilligu, Titania, you can still live in our world." At this moment, Ray Minkai knew it was time for him to speak. That's right. The two of them had a tacit understanding from the start and had already schemed against Zilligu and Titania. Their previous actions were to give Euphemia the opportunity to send out an invitation in the name of the Empress. Titania was silent. Zilligu was also silent. But soon, Titania and Zilligu exchanged glances again, and Titania slowly nodded. "Thank you very much for His Majesty's invitation. I, Titania, and Zilligu are willing to accept His Majesty's invitation and become the instructor and vice-instructor of the personal knight regiment." Chapter 276. Gather, Gather. In the middle of the night, an urgent bell suddenly rang, waking up all the reserve knight who had just fallen asleep. What's going on? What happened? The bell rang more and more urgently, and the reserve knight who had been woken up became even more flustered. The flustered rookies didn't know that their panicked expressions and messy actions had already been seen by others. That's too tragic. Ray Minkai shook his head helplessly. Even though these reserve knights didn't have much to do with him, but the future members of the Empress Personal Knight Regiment would inevitably be born from this group of confused rookies. As soon as he thought of this, Ray Minkai couldn't help but have the urge to expel this group of confused rookies. It must be known that even he wouldn't be in such a state from the sudden attack of the instructor. Viretta, who was standing at the side, didn't look too good either. Even though these reserve knights weren't personally selected by her, but in reality, these reserve knights still needed her approval to enter this knight academy that had just been established for less than half a month. In the end, Ray Minkai secretly shook his head. That's it. After all, this order came too suddenly. Don't think that those people will send their elites over. But this is good too. At least when I use it, it won't be a hindrance. Smiling, Ray Minkai turned around and looked at Zilligu and Titania, who were standing on the other side. At this moment, Zilligu and Titania had already changed into the officer's uniform of the Empress Personal Knight Regiment. One was cold and stern, the other was valiant and formidable. It could be said that they were a match made in heaven. Xiligu, Titania. I'll leave this group of messy rookies to you, is that okay? Ray Minkai pointed at the reserve knight regiment who had already recovered from the panic and stood neatly on the flat ground in front of the dormitory. Are there any spots to be sacrificed? As soon as Xiligu opened his mouth, a strong aura of death rushed over. However, this was inevitable. After all, everything that Xiligu had experienced, he had crawled out from hell. Regardless of whether it was the village when he was young, or the Azura massacre when he became a member of the Red Shoulders team, or the series of life and death separations after the Red Shoulders team disbanded. Under this type of experience, one shouldn't expect Xiligu's training methods to be the same as those of those academies that had a clear and logical head. My lord. Vireta instinctively reminded Ray Minkai when she sensed the meaning behind Xiligu's words. However, Ray Minkai raised his right hand and stopped him. Sure. However, Xiligu, I hope that my method will be used in the final selection. We can learn from the Red Shoulders squad, but we can't copy them completely. As he spoke, Ray Minkai pointed to the group of reserve knight below. What we want to train is a knight who can fight for the Imperium and the Empress in the universe, not a murderer. Therefore, the balance can only be grasped by you and Titania. Murderer? Xiligu's eyes flashed and he went silent again. Titania, who was standing at the side, opened her mouth and asked, Chief Knight. Before the final selection, I hope that Chief Knight won't interfere too much with our training. In response to Titania's request, Lei Minkai smiled faintly and magnanimously replied, That's right. No. I won't interfere with your training. As long as you do your best to avoid accidents and carry out your training normally. His Majesty and I will give you our full support in all matters. Yes, we understand. Then, without further ado, can we start training? Ray Minkai raised his hand and gestured for Xiligu and Titania to begin. Xiligu, let's go. This is our new life. At the sound of Titania's voice, Xiligu and Titania stepped forward in unison towards the group of knight in training. It's really a disaster. Looking at Xiligu and Titania's departing figures, Vireta sighed secretly. Other than following Ray Minkai and arranging Xiligu and Titania's matters, she didn't have much opportunity to interact with the two. However, this didn't affect Vireta's impression of Xiligu and Titania. After some observation, Vireta came to the decision to avoid provoking the two as much as possible. Because, when looking at the two of them, there was always a pressure of an impending disaster hovering above her head. This feeling made Vireta surprised and even more uncomfortable. Vireta, are you very afraid of Xiligu and Titania? Ray Minkai suddenly asked. No. Vireta was shocked and quickly denied. I'm not afraid of the two instructors. It's just that from their bodies I feel a pressure. It's as if the moment I clash with them, the scythe of the Grim Reaper will fall on my head. Is that so? So, Vireta, that's what you're thinking. However, this wasn't strange either. Under the personal introduction of Ray Minkai and Euphemia, almost the entire Empire's new military force group formed with Ray Minkai and Euphemia as the core already knew about the two strangers who suddenly appeared in Pandora. Of course, with regards to the sudden appearance of Xiligu and Titania being able to be appointed by Euphemia as the instructor and vice-instructor of the personal knight regiment without a word, some people were naturally unconvinced. Therefore, it was inevitable that a secret conflict would occur. However, the outcome of this secret confrontation was quickly decided. Some people who lost left the imperial capital with their tails between their legs. They took the letter of appointment personally signed by Empress Euphemia and ran to the Empire's newly divided outer regions to spend the rest of their lives there. At the same time, thanks to the result of this charge that not many people knew about other than the core members of the Empire, the youths, including Vireta, finally let go of their grudges and tried to accept the existence of Xiligu and Titania. No. I'm just curious about the instructor's teaching abilities. Veretta shook her head lightly. Is that so? Don't worry. In the coming days, you'll see Kiligu's and Titania's teaching abilities. In the open space in front of the dormitory, Kiligu and Titania were surrounded by soldiers as they stood in front of the reserve Knight Regiment and lectured them. Naturally, the job of lecturing was left to Titania. Kiligu was in charge of using his hands and not his mouth. As soon as he came up, 3 stubborn reserve Knight Regiment fell to the ground and begged for mercy. Looks like Kiligu is very motivated. Leave this place to them. Veretta, from today onwards, as long as Kiligu and Titania want something or equipment, try your best to satisfy them. As for His Majesty, I'll naturally talk to him. Yes, sir. After giving his instructions, Rei Minkai, who had great confidence in Kiligu and Titania's abilities, quickly left the new Knight Academy that was temporarily set up on the right side of the palace. There were more things waiting for Rei Minkai. For example, the coffin that Fianna was sleeping in. 8 hours ago, Rei Minkai's personal terminal received a message from the Ministry of Justice's laboratory. From the content of the message, it seemed that there was some progress in the analysis of the coffin. Veretta, do you know where State Zero is? It was early in the morning, and I couldn't see it. Standing in front of the palace gate, Rei Minkai asked. Veretta thought for a while and said with uncertainty, "An hour ago, State Zero seemed to be in the Imperial Garden." An hour? Rei Minkai thought for a while and shook his head slightly. Forget it. This shouldn't be a big deal. Let's go. After walking for a few steps, Rei Minkai suddenly stopped and turned around to look at Veretta. Rei Minkai realized that Veretta actually let go of her long silver hair and no longer tied it into a ponytail. Instead, she chose a hairstyle with long hair that draped over her shoulders. It seemed to be particularly like a wife. Sir, what are you looking at? Is there something wrong with my face? Under Rei Minkai's gaze, Veretta suddenly blushed. However, due to her brown skin, the red cloud that flew up was not very obvious. No, it's not like that. It's just that I suddenly feel that you are actually very beautiful now. Veretta. Rei Minkai nodded before turning around and leaving with a sympathetic expression on his face. Veretta, whose face was getting hotter and hotter, was stunned for a long time before she reacted to Rei Minkai's sudden praise. As she chased after Rei Minkai's footsteps, the corner of her mouth could not help but curl up slightly. A few hours later, Rei Minkai and Veretta, whose face was filled with shock, passed through the world gate of the ruling throne and arrived at Xingyao City once again. The reception staff sent by the Ministry of Justice was already waiting for them. Sir Inspector, please follow me. The doctor has already finished his work 10 minutes ago and is waiting for the two of you to come. Under the guidance of the reception staff, Rei Minkai and Veretta boarded the Skitran to the Ministry of Justice's Research Institute. Veretta, have you been to this city before? Sitting in the Skitran, Rei Minkai glanced at Veretta, who wanted to see, but had to maintain the etiquette of a follower, and chuckled. Veretta, if you want to see, go ahead. There is no need for any follower to stand guard here. Sir, but... Veretta seemed to be hesitant. For Veretta, who was born and raised in the world of Lu Lucio, this space city wandering in the void was indeed a spectacle she had never seen or heard of in her life. Even when Rei Minkai was on a mission, Veretta learned some things about this world through some video information sent by Euphemia, but it was the first time she saw Xingyao City with her own eyes. Go ahead, Veretta. There is still some time before we reach the Doctor's Research Institute. Under Rei Minkai's insistence, Veretta could only accept Rei Minkai's command. The temptation of exploring a new world was something that not many people could resist. Therefore, during Veretta's exploration, Rei Minkai's Skitran finally stopped in front of the Ministry of Justice's Research Institute after a period of travel. As soon as Rei Minkai got off the train, he saw an iconic chocolate bar swaying back and forth in the air. And the person who caused this strange phenomenon, needless to say, must be the Ministry of Justice's Sherhui, who always had a chocolate bar in her mouth. Doctor. Long time no see. This is my adjutant. Veretta knew. Ray Minkai smiled and took the initiative to introduce Sherhui and Veretta to the Ministry of Justice. Veretta. This is the Ministry of Justice's Sherhui, the Ministry of Justice's doctor. Hello. After a series of greetings, Ray Minkai went straight to the point. Doctor. Is there any progress in the analysis of the coffin? A little bit. At the very least, I now know how to separate Fianna from the coffin. The Ministry of Justice's hand paused. After she put the chocolate bar back in her mouth, she put her hands back into her pocket. Come with me. Just by talking, I'm afraid I won't be able to finish talking until tomorrow. Also, you might not understand what I'm talking about. The words of the Ministry of Justice's Sherhui made Ray Minkai smile. Although it was a bit rude, it was the truth. Ray Minkai, a brute who fought on the front line all day long, didn't understand much of the terminology used by researchers. Therefore, the decision of the Ministry of Justice's Sherhui was correct. Compared to the confusing scientific research terminology, Ray Minkai preferred a straightforward way to witness it with his own eyes. After 10 fingerprints, voice, pupil, and other verification, Ray Minkai and Veretta finally followed the footsteps of the Ministry of Justice's Sherhui and stepped into an underground space located in the deepest part of the research institute. Here, countless lines were evenly distributed throughout the underground space from top to bottom. Moreover, in the air of this underground space, unmanned robots carrying test tubes and small equipment were shuttling back and forth in an endless stream. This is the periphery of Laboratory 0. After entering the interior, these drones won't be able to see. The Ministry of Justice's Sherhui slightly raised her eyes and looked at the unmanned robots flying around. Along the way, under the guidance of the Ministry of Justice's Sherhui, Ray Minkai and Veretta, who entered the interior of Laboratory 0, immediately saw the coffin placed in the center of the laboratory. It was connected to the coffin from all directions. 10 hours ago, we successfully analyzed the mysterious substance covering the surface of the coffin. At the same time, through our preliminary experiments, it is because of this mysterious substance that the coffin is able to resist most firearms, even the sharp claws of your Lion 0. The Ministry of Justice's Sherhui took a document from her subordinate and handed it to Ray Minkai as she spoke. Ray Minkai took the document but didn't immediately check it. In other words, as long as the mysterious substance covering the coffin is removed, then Fianna will be released? That's what it says, but I need the assistance of State 0. After all, this mysterious substance is related to State 0. Chapter 277. It was still the same. Well, there were some differences. Unlike the previous experience when State White Cat 0 was placed in a glass jar, the current State White Cat 0 only needed to wear a small vest with 5 red and green wires connected to it, and it could connect to the coffin. Can this little thing really work? Let alone Ray Minkai, even State White Cat 0 himself was puzzled by the little vest. Just by wearing a small vest, it could connect with the layer of mysterious substance covering the surface of the coffin? Wasn't it a bit too much of a joke? Don't worry. It's just a preliminary test. Although we have completed the preliminary analysis of the mysterious substance, there are still more mysteries waiting for us to carry out the next step of in-depth research. So, for now, I'll have to trouble you to wear this vest and cooperate with our work. The chocolate bar swayed up and down along with the movement of her lip. The Ministry of Justice's Sherhui did not even lift her eyes as she quickly typed on the keyboard while explaining the origin of this little vest to State 0 and Ray Minkai. This is the synchronous resonance suit that we developed in the process of analyzing the mysterious substance. Although it's a bit small, given the time constraints, This is the best we can do for now. So, please bear with it, State Zero. White Cat Zero looked down at the small vest that covered most of its body, slightly twitched its mouth, and said no more. Ray Minkai asked, "Next, are we going to develop a bigger synchronous resonance suit that can be worn by adults?" Minister of Justice sure pondered for a moment. "Whether we develop it or not depends on whether the analysis work this time is successful, and whether such a situation will occur again in the future." Minister of Justice sure raised her hand to take off the chocolate bar in her mouth and pointed at the coffin from afar. "To be honest, we still don't know if this is a special case or if there is a considerable amount of imagination. According to our analysis, although the layer of mysterious substance is very strange, it is not difficult to see that the appearance of these mysterious substances is influenced by human factors." Human factors? Ray Minkai frowned, and then told the information he had obtained from the elders of the church to Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice. P.S. Man-made soldiers? Perhaps it was possible. However, the mysterious substance is not something that can be controlled by the world you went to before. The chocolate bar in Shi Hui's hand swayed slowly. She explained as she pondered. "Even though I haven't been to that world, I can make some deductions based on the level of technology contained in Titania. The conclusion was that it was impossible for that world to produce the mysterious substance on its own. No, it was even impossible for it to develop the mysterious substance. I'm afraid the appearance of this mysterious substance is just like the extraterrestrial object that suddenly appeared in that world. A foreign object." This statement made Ray Minkai's heart tighten. Could it be that there are external forces other than me hiding in the dark and affecting the development of that world? "I'm afraid that's the case." The Ministry of Justice, Shi Hui, nodded. She pressed a button on the keyboard and pointed to a datagraph that popped up. "This is the result of my analysis of Fianna's and Titania's bodies. Can you see what's wrong?" At first, Ray Minkai couldn't see what was wrong with this comparison result, but when Ray Minkai saw the last predicted lifespan, he found something wrong. Fianna's lifespan? Yes, because Fianna was the number 1 PS, she could only have a short lifespan of 2 years. If not for this, she wouldn't have fallen into an eternal slumber in Kiligu's arms while welcoming the victorious Kiligu at the end of the glorious heresy. At this moment, the result displayed in front of Ray Minkai's eyes was that Fianna still had at least 30 years of lifespan. What's going on? Under Ray Minkai's puzzled gaze, Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice shrugged her shoulders. Her eyes also revealed an inquisitive light. Very surprised, right? A person who has clearly been dead for a long time is actually detected to have at least 30 years of lifespan. I don't believe that this change has nothing to do with the mysterious substance. Then, Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice raised her head to look at the time. All right. Let's not talk too much. State Zero, if you're ready, we'll begin. State Zero, who was already prepared, nodded. The experiment began. However, this experiment unexpectedly took a few days. But when the artificial sun in Starlight City switched between day and night mode for the 5th time, the fatigued Ministry of Justice, Shi Hui, ordered her equally fatigued subordinates to temporarily disperse and enter a period of rest. After all her subordinates left, Shi Hui fiercely bit off a large piece of chocolate and said with some indignation, "Our conjecture was correct. This mysterious substance was indeed artificially placed in that world. Although in the previous experiment we were tricked by the counter-program hidden in the mysterious substance, but we still gained something. That's all you have." With the help of Ray Minkai, the white cat, who had taken off its vest, jumped onto the table beside it. It looked at the crimson crystal on the table, and shook its head slightly. Too little. For the white cat, even if it wanted to eat a bigger one. Such a small piece in front of it could not arouse the interest of the white cat at all. Quite a bit. State Zero. Don't be too greedy. This is the result of the doctor's and everyone's efforts. Recalling the sudden crisis 2 days ago, Lei Mingkai still had a lingering fear in his heart. At that time, the connection between the white cat and the coffin was very smooth, and the further optimization of the analysis program was also running smoothly. But just as the analysis program was about to break through the core of the mysterious substance, an accident happened. Warning! 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 Huge energy reaction detected. Huge energy reaction detected. Suspected self-explosion reaction. Suspected self-explosion reaction. Please respond immediately. Please respond immediately. The sudden warning from the AI core monitoring the entire research institute frightened everyone, and they quickly acted according to the emergency procedures. Cut off the energy link. Actively reduce the link frequency. Raise the energy shield force field. Under the calm command of the Ministry of Justice, all the emergency measures were completed perfectly. However, these emergency measures only suppressed the sudden high-energy reaction for less than 10 minutes. The warning sounded again. Warning! Warning! The high-energy reaction is about to break through the critical point. The energy shield force field is about to fail. Evacuate immediately! Evacuate immediately! Doctor from the Ministry of Justice, according to all the regulations of the Zero Emergency Plan, it is recommended that the doctor immediately evacuate the Research Institute. Evacuate immediately! The Research Institute will complete the autonomous disconnection procedure in 5 minutes and initiate the self-destruction procedure. The AI's voice was sharp, and the situation was very urgent. However, what happened next stunned everyone. Suddenly, the high-energy reaction that was about to explode and break through the shaky energy shield force field disappeared. He disappeared without a trace. After that, the high-energy reaction detected by the AI, other than an abnormal reaction record, did not appear again. In view of this abnormal situation, the Ministry of Justice decided to cancel the previous slightly aggressive plan on the spot and changed it to the current plan that was slow and steady and progressing gradually. And the result was the small stone that the white cat disliked. State 0. Since you don't like it, I will use this stone that almost blew us up to make something. The Ministry of Justice did not feel much about the white cat's disdain for State 0. Instead, it just so happened that the small stone was useful. Doctor, what are you thinking? Do you still remember the disc that I gave you before? Although it was just a prototype, with this small stone, it should be able to perform well. Picking up the small stone, the Ministry of Justice's mouth curved slightly, and she spoke of her plan. You should know that we were made a fool of. The army commander once said that it is impolite not to reciprocate. Since the other party has made a move, we have to reciprocate, right? Doctor, you mean to use the crystal extracted from the mysterious substance to perfect the disc's function? Correct. That's my idea. He meant what he said. After making the decision, the Ministry of Justice immediately went back to work. She chased Rei Mingkai and the white cat out of her laboratory, so as not to disturb her work on the disc. It seems that someone is going to suffer. Lying on Rei Mingkai's shoulder, the white cat State 0 looked back at the slowly closing door and shook its head. Maybe. But, if what the doctor said is true, then, we might be able to use the modified disc to find the fragment. Rei Mingkai said while thinking. And, we also learned something. The white cat State 0 glanced at Rei Mingkai. Mingkai, are you saying that other than us, there are other people who have their eyes on the fragment? I'm afraid so. From the moment Fianna's coffin fell from the sky, the whole thing was shrouded in a layer of fog. Rei Mingkai pondered and recalled the details of the battle at that time. I still remember that when we were looking for the enemy commander, there was a sudden and somewhat familiar signal. Don't you think it strange? State 0. Indeed. Logically speaking, in that world, we are just outsiders. No one knows us at all, but the appearance of the signal has a familiar feeling. The white cat State Zero also nodded in agreement. Who do you think it is? I don't know. But maybe the answer is already in front of us. It's just that we overlooked some things. The modification of the disk by the Ministry of Justice would not be completed in just a few days. Therefore, Ray Minkai also took advantage of this time to complete some of his own tasks. For example, he went to the administration headquarters to report the results of this mission. After handing over the inspector badge to the front desk for review, Ray Minkai received a summons from the bureau chief. This might be the first time Ray Minkai saw the true face of the legendary bureau chief. During the period when he became an inspector, Ray Minkai had heard a lot of rumors about the bureau chief. Mysterious, powerful. He often showed up with a mask, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. Except for a few trusted aides, almost no one could see the true face of the mysterious bureau chief. In addition to these rumors that were getting more and more mysterious, there were more rumors that made Ray Minkai dumbfounded. Of course, these were just rumors after meals. Beep beep. Please show me your inspector badge. Just as he walked out of the elevator, Ray Minkai was stopped by the defensive robot at the entrance. TSK. This pile of metal is really annoying. The white cat State Zero lying on Ray Minkai's shoulder looked at the robot in disdain when Ray Minkai took out his badge. Warning. State Zero, metal life form Long Fong Lion, your form of existence is not much different from ours. Please stop using insulting words. Because, while you are insulting us, you are also insulting yourself. The robot standing on Ray Minkai's left heard the words of the white cat State Zero and immediately turned around. He stared at the white cat State Zero and said something that made the white cat State Zero speechless. You! The fur on the white cat State Zero suddenly stood up. Its sharp claws were ready to attack. It was as if in the next moment, the white cat State Zero would violently teach the two robots a lesson. Stop! State Zero! There is no need to be so angry. Ray Minkai raised his hand and pressed on the head of the white cat State Zero. If he did not stop the attack of the white cat State Zero in time, the two robots being killed might be a small matter. The bureau being attacked by the crazy Long Fong Lion was a fatal matter. Identity confirmed. Inspector Ray Minkai, you may enter. However, please pay attention to your pet. Do not let your pet run around in the office to avoid unnecessary damage. You! Once it heard that it was treated as a pet cat by the two metal lumps, the white cat State Zero exploded on the spot. Okay. Let's go in. State Zero. Later, let Viretta send over the prepared cherry stones. Ray Minkai's eyelids twitched wildly. He quickly comforted the white cat State Zero. When he walked into the floor where the office was located, he subconsciously looked back at the two robots. Damn it! Isn't this AI's intelligence too high? Who the hell designed these robots? This doubt did not last long. The moment the office door opened, Ray Minkai calmed down and prepared to meet the rumored, mysterious and powerful bureau chief. However, the moment he stepped through the door, he was surprised to find that the person sitting behind the desk was Reza Beryl, whom he had not seen for a long time. Long time no see. Kai. I am the acting bureau chief, Reza Beryl. Ray revealed a helpless wry smile and introduced himself. Chapter 278. He never thought that it was Ray who was sitting on the throne of the authority. After a moment of shock, Ray Minkai saw the wry smile on Ray's mouth and immediately realized that there must be something strange about it. Ray, you were promoted to director? Congratulations! Congratulations! Ray Minkai's congratulatory voice made the wry smile on Ray's mouth even more intense. Don't laugh at me, Kai. This is also a helpless move. Please sit down. A helpless move? Could there have been an accident? Ray Minkai asked subconsciously as he sat down. But as soon as he spoke, Ray Minkai found that he seemed to have violated some confidentiality regulations. But Ray didn't care and just waved his hand. Don't be nervous. This is why I called you here, Kai. Before the director left, he told me to inform you to come over when you came back. It's all for this. With that, Ray picked up a box from the table and handed it to Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai, who didn't know what was going on, took the box and opened it. He found a data storage card lying quietly in the box. This is? Not long ago, the monitoring department detected an abnormal fluctuation from the depths of the spacetime channel. According to the subsequent data analysis, we found that this abnormal fluctuation is somewhat related to the previous abnormal fluctuation related to you. Ray motioned Ray Minkai to look at the data while explaining. Is it a fragment? Ray Minkai looked at the data list that appeared in front of him and asked subconsciously. Maybe, but in fact, this abnormal fluctuation only appeared once. In the following time, no matter how much we strengthened the monitoring force, we couldn't detect this abnormal fluctuation again. Ray shook his head and continued. It seems that this abnormal fluctuation is like an illusion that suddenly appeared in the vast sea. What do you mean? Looking at the data in front of him, Ray Minkai had an idea. Go and take a look, Kai. The space-time coordinates have been marked. As for the rest, it's up to you to decide. Although our administration has enough manpower to arrange this mission, considering that this abnormal fluctuation may be related to you, the director also proposed that you go directly to the abnormal spacetime to check it out. Ray took a deep breath and continued. Also, I heard that you brought back a sample that is particularly important to the research project of the Ministry of Justice, right? I believe that the doctor will further develop equipment that can detect the abnormal fluctuations related to you and your long-toothed lion based on the samples you brought back. Ray Minkai could understand what Ray said. Furthermore, he believed that we of the Ministry of Justice would be able to do it. However, before that, Ray Minkai still had some matters to attend to. Regardless of whether this is a clue related to the fragment or not, I will still go. However, I need some time to arrange things. Hearing Ray Minkai's words, Ray revealed a smile that everyone understood. After all, Ray Minkai was no longer alone. Instead, he was a knight captain of the Empress of the Empire. Even if the administration sent a lot of forces to consolidate Euphemia's authority in order to assist Euphemia, Ray Minkai, as her partner, still had a lot of work to deal with. Kai. We understand and support this. The job of an inspector is not only to complete the tasks of the administration, but also to deal with many affairs in the world they belong to and contribute to the development of the administration. I see. Then. Wait. Ray stopped Ray Minkai, who was about to leave, then turned around and picked up a document from the desk. This is the analysis of the direction of the source of the abnormal fluctuations by the monitoring team. The results may be somewhat different, but it is the best result that the monitoring team can do in a short period of time. Thank you. Ray Minkai nodded and reached out to take the document. Right. If you can't make a choice, you might as well try to decide the order. Although that abnormal fluctuation was just a flash in the pan, we have reason to believe that it will appear again. So, even if it fails, there will still be a chance to succeed in the future. After returning to the residence that the administration arranged for him in the City of Stars with Ray's somewhat inexplicable words, Ray Minkai opened the document. Kai, this is the abnormal fluctuation that the blonde kid mentioned? During the conversation with Ray, White Cat State Zero, who had been silent, jumped directly on the table and looked down at the paragraph describing the abnormal fluctuation in the document. Three worlds? White Cat State Zero's gaze quickly swept through the paragraph on the document and finally stopped on the analysis results of the abnormal fluctuation. The analysis results showed that there were 3 possible sources of the abnormal fluctuation, namely the spacetime numbered X0069, X0071, and X0072. There are 3 speculated sources of the abnormal fluctuation. Although it is a little unexpected, it is indeed reasonable. Ray Minkai was not too surprised. One must know that this was directly locking on to 3 suspected target worlds through just one abnormal fluctuation. This technology had already saved Ray Minkai a lot of effort. No wonder Ray said those words before he left. Even if the source of the abnormal fluctuation could not be found in one of the worlds, there were still the remaining 2 worlds. This was not an aimless journey of exploration. Do you want to go, Kai? This may be a mission that depends on luck. White Cat State Zero raised its head and looked at Ray Minkai. Choose 1 out of 3, a 33% chance of winning the prize? That's okay. After all, this is not a single choice, but a trial-and-error journey. Ray Minkai smiled and did not care about it. If you don't win the first time, then change to the next goal. It's just that this journey may be a little long. Yes, if the source of the abnormal fluctuation was not found in the first target world, Ray Minkai and White Cat State Zero would probably have to go to the next world without stopping. In this way, there would be no intermission time. In fact, Ray Minkai did not need to think like this, but he did not dare to take the risk. Even if Ray, the acting director, had some confidence in the appearance of the abnormal fluctuation again, Ray Minkai did not have confidence in his heart. Especially State Zero. What do you think is the probability that the abnormal fluctuation this time is a fragment? White Cat State Zero tilted its head and looked at the monitoring data displayed on Ray Minkai's personal terminal and shook its head. I don't know. I don't understand these data. The only thing I can do is to go to those worlds personally and see where the abnormal fluctuation came from. What if we find out that it's not a fragment? Ray Minkai suddenly asked. Salad. White Cat State Zero rolled its eyes like a human and laid down beside the document. Whether it's a fragment or not, what I'm staring at now is the things on the coffin. Looking at the fragments there, but not being able to eat them. Uncomfortable. The artificial sun in Xingyao City gradually set. Ray Minkai sat on the recliner and casually flipped through the document in his hand. In this document, there were not only the analysis results of the abnormal fluctuation. There was also some information about the 3 target world. After flipping through it, Ray Minkai closed the document and looked up slightly at the gradually setting artificial sun. Interesting. I didn't expect it to be those worlds. Maybe I need to find a few helpers. When the night left and the sun rose again, Ray Minkai and White Cat State Zero returned to Lulusia World. Veretta, who returned first, was already waiting in the throne of command. Sir. His Majesty has now gone to Europa for peace talks with Langlan Shi. Should we rush to meet with His Majesty now, or go to the Night Academy to patrol first? Once the throne of command, which he Mimi gave to Euphemia in the name of the administration and the corps, appeared, it brought great pressure to all the forces at home and abroad. No matter who it was, as long as they raised their heads, they would see the high and mighty ruling throne floating quietly above the 9 heavens. When they saw the body that was like a small moon, they would feel a terrifying pressure coming straight at them. It was impossible to resist. Even if the strength of all the countries in the world, and even the voices of opposition within the Britannia Empire were all integrated, they could not compete with 1/3 of the power of the throne of command. Therefore, the crown on Euphemia's head became more and more stable, and the power of the empire radiated and the range of influence became wider and wider. Now, under the joint announcement of the young king of Gilkston Kingdom, Shailio and Princess Shyamna, who were the first to merge into the territory of the Britannia Empire, the Europa alliance led by Langlan Shi also made a corresponding response. The territory of the empire is going to expand again. Ray Minkai's gaze looked through the floor-to-ceiling glass of the throne of command and looked at the blue planet below. The constant expansion of the Empire's territory brought about heavy work and personnel mobilization, and many other matters. It was likely that Euphemia would not be able to leave and carry out missions with Rei Minkai in a short period of time. Sir, His Majesty sent a message. At this time, Veretta handed the communicator in her hand to Rei Minkai. Then, after Rei Minkai took it, she quietly left the room, leaving space for Rei Minkai and Euphemia. Kai, you're back. Euphemia's slightly tired face appeared on the holographic projection. I'm back. Everything went smoothly. However, I received a new mission. Furthermore, I'm afraid that this new mission will take a very long time. Rei Minkai smiled gently and then told the contents of the document to Euphemia. 3 worlds? Or do you want to explore them all in one go? This is too reckless. Kai, with your strength alone, you can't complete the mission in a short period of time. Euphemia exclaimed. Rei Minkai shook his head and raised his hand to pat the white cat State 0, who closed its eyes and pretended to sleep on his shoulder. Actually, I also thought of forming 2 small teams as the vanguard to go to the target world to fight in the front line. But due to some reasons, and the fact that there is only one tusked lion State 0, I could only give up in the end. At the same time, White Cat State 0 impatiently slapped Rei Minkai's hand away and said, Only I can detect the abnormal fluctuations whether it is a fragment or not. Therefore, even if Kai sent a small team to explore the other 2 worlds, it would be a waste of effort. Is that so? It seems that we have no other way. Kai, promise me. Before I come back from Europe, you have to wait for me. Even if I can't carry out the mission with you now, I want to see you set off with my own eyes. I will. UFFI. Now I will go and prepare first. The short communication ended. The princess and the knight began to busy themselves with the matters at hand at this moment. When the sun rose to the highest point in the sky, Rei Minkai and Veretta came to the place where Ziliku and Titania were training the reserve knight. Sir, during this period of time, the 2 instructors, Ziliku and Titania, jointly proposed a training document and received His Majesty's approval. So, what are the results? I'm afraid that in these few days, some people have already decided to retreat, right? A few days was not a lot, but it was also not a little. But it was enough for an adult with a slightly weaker mind to make a choice. Yes. According to the results of these few days of training, the reserve knight has been reduced from 500 people at the beginning of the training to 400 people. Among them, 43 people were seriously injured during the training and were directly sent to the hospital for emergency treatment. Among the remaining 57 people, 23 of them lost their limbs during the training, and 34 of them suffered injuries of varying degrees. Veretta, who was closely monitoring the progress of the training, calmly said a set of slightly shocking data. Fortunately, there seemed to be no death. There were no accidents where the students died during the training? Rei Minkai pondered for a moment and asked. Yes. Under the circumstances where the administration provided several medical teams in advance, all the students who suffered different degrees of injuries have recovered. Including the students who lost their limbs. Yes. However, before these heavily injured students recover, they unanimously requested to withdraw from the Knight's Personal Guard Regiment. At this point, Veretta's face seemed to be a little embarrassed. It had only been a few days since the training began, and there was a joint request from 1/5 of the Reserve Knight Regiment to withdraw from the training. This situation was probably the laughing stock of the Empire's nobles. Approve it, Veretta. If there are other students who make the same request in the future, immediately approve it unconditionally. Rei Minkai did not want to say anything to these Reserve Knight Regiment who did not know how to recognize Mount Tai. They did not even try to suck up to the powerful motivator, and were scared away by the difficulties in front of them. This kind of Reserve Knight Regiment, even if they passed the test later, would still be a hidden danger. So, in for a penny, in for a pound, simply let them go. By the time these people, who thought they had seen the joke of the Royal Guard Regiment, realized how terrible the combination of Ziligu Chubby and Titania was, regret would inevitably drown them like a tide. Chapter 279. Da-da-da-da-da. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of gunfire came like a storm, and the boundary of the abyss of death seemed like it would break through reality in the next instant, bringing all of the young knight crawling on the ground into the abyss of eternal damnation. TSK. As expected of a demon. He actually dares to make such a scene. In this group of young knight, a young man with a trace of craftiness in his eyes muttered unhappily. Don't talk. Pay attention to the surroundings. I think I can hear the sound of KMF moving. Beside the young man who was muttering, another young man whose face was smeared with mud looked around cautiously. However, his words did not attract the attention of his companions, and instead, it attracted the ridicule of his companions. Don't joke around. No matter how powerful that demon is, it is impossible for him to move KMF over. In the midst of the gunfire that was used to simulate a real battle environment, familiar bodies walked out from the surrounding smoke and raised the machine guns in their hands uniformly, pointing at the group of young knight who were crawling on the ground. Gotcha! At this moment, the sound of bullets being loaded instantly caused the previous gunfire and the huge pressure brought by the demon that the young knight spoke of to explode on the spot. Hurry! Hurry and run! That demon actually used Sunderland. This is not training. This is a TU kill. The appearance of Sunderland made these young knight who had collapsed on the spot immediately break into a run. They simply did not care about the gunfire and explosions that were still ringing around them. Suddenly, a young knight who was running at the front suddenly had a sound under his feet. Immediately after, a fireball exploded, and in the blink of an eye, the young knight's legs were blown away. The blood-curdling scream pierced through the air, suppressing all the other sounds on the spot, and directly pierced into the ears of everyone present. However, even if they saw their companions fall, the young knight at the back did not dare to stay in the same place. They could only brace themselves, clench their teeth, and charge forward towards the finish line. Tears of panic and screams of terror rang out incessantly, serving as a guiding signal for Sunderland to advance from behind. Between the Sunderland helicopters chasing after the young knight, there were also white ambulances with Red Cross emblems shuttling back and forth, rescuing the wounded who had been blown to the ground. They quickly treated the wounds according to the battlefield treatment plan. After maintaining basic vital signs, they were sent to the rear for comprehensive medical treatment. It seems that we have become demons in the eyes of those young men. Kiligu. On a hill not far away, Tsirigu and Titania stood side by side, silently looking down at the training ground that was no different from a real battlefield. They looked at the young knight who was rolling in blood and fire. Kiligu fell silent. Even when he was talking to Titania, he rarely showed his attitude. However, even so, Titania was still able to see through Kiligu's thoughts from his face, which was as cold as an iceberg in the eyes of ordinary people. Titania raised her head and looked at the throne hanging high in the sky. It was only slightly smaller than the moon. Today was the day that the young man who brought Kiligu and Titania to this world and gave them a leisurely but fulfilling life was going to carry out his mission. Queen Euphemia, who Kiligu and Titania had sworn allegiance to a few days ago, also led everyone to the throne to send off the knight. Kiligu, do you want to go? Titania knew the dilemma in Kiligu's heart. On one hand, it was rare for him to be able to escape from the endless battles and obtain a relatively peaceful life. On the other hand, Rei Minkai's help without asking for anything in return made Kiligu very uneasy. Both Kiligu and Titania could feel Rei Minkai's intentions. They knew that Rei Minkai was sincerely helping them. However, up until now, other than Rei Minkai and Euphemia working together to recruit them, the help the Queen and the Knight had given them had far exceeded the negative impact of the former. Killigrew gazed at the throne in the sky and shook his head slightly. Now, our mission is to train this batch of knight. Only when they are truly qualified and obtain the Red Pauldrons can they be called members of the personal Knight Corps. Red Pauldrons. Titania was stunned when she heard this name. Before this, Killigrew had never mentioned anything about this. I just thought of it, Killigrew explained calmly and fell silent. However, Titania understood what Killigrew meant. Perhaps, in Killigrew's heart, only the Red Pauldrons could be compared to the strongest army. Perhaps this was the only way to repay Ray Minkai and Euphemia for their help. Titania raised her hand and patted Killigrew. She smiled and said, "If that's the case, then let's become complete demons." Okay. Now that Killigrew and Titania had made up their minds, the remaining 400 or so knights would have to face a hellish training that was more and more tragic than the previous one. At the same time, in the throne, Ray Minkai, who had made all the preparations, stood in front of the World Gate. As for his partner for this trip, only the White Cat, State Zero, would be there. As the Queen of the Empire, Euphemia was at a critical juncture of integrating the world's forces. She could not leave this world to carry out the mission with Ray Minkai. Besides, it wasn't that Euphemia hadn't thought of letting Cornelia and Valletta set off with Ray Minkai on her behalf. However, she was too busy with the Empire's affairs at hand to think about it. Ray Minkai's departure required someone to temporarily take charge of the personal Knight Corps. The only suitable candidates were Cornelia and Valletta. However, Valletta had the important task of coordinating the Reserve Knight Corps' training and integrating various intelligence reports. Therefore, the only suitable candidate was Cornelia. "Kai, I'm sorry. I can't go with you this time. Moreover, the pirate Gouda has become the symbol of the Empire. You can't take him away for the time being." Euphemia's brows were still furrowed. No matter how she thought about it, she could not provide Ray Minkai with any help that could increase his combat power. "No. UFFI. You have done well enough. Now that you have just ascended the throne as the Empress, you should be the first to use the power that we can. You don't have to worry about me here. No matter what, I still have State Zero, right?" While Ray Minkai comforted Euphemia, the White Cat State Zero on Ray Minkai's shoulder also nodded. "Don't worry, Your Majesty. We have a common destiny. We can't do without anyone. Therefore, Kai and I will return safely. Your task is to integrate the Empire's power." After hearing this, Euphemia revealed a slightly bitter smile. However, in the next moment, that delicate little face was already filled with a determined expression. "I know. Kai, be careful. I will be at the back and integrate all the power. Wait for me. I will definitely rush to your side as soon as possible." Okay. In the next moment, Ray Minkai stepped forward and hugged Euphemia tightly in front of everyone's eyes. Then, he let go and looked at Cornelia and Valletta, who were standing at the side. "Your Highness Cornelia, Valletta, I will leave Her Majesty to you. Don't worry. Euphemia is not only the Empress of the Empire, but also my sister. Before I fall, no one can hurt Euphemia." "Yes, sir. Prosperous martial arts." With the blessings of Euphemia, Cornelia, Valletta, and the others, Ray Minkai resolutely turned and walked into the World Gate. Half an hour later, Ray Minkai boarded the space battleship that had been waiting for a long time at the port, Macross Winchim. Old friend. Unexpectedly, the ship supporting Ray Minkai's operation this time was actually his old friend, Winchim. "Ha ha ha ha. Your Excellency, Inspector. I didn't expect us to meet again so soon." Amidst the laughter, Hudson, who appeared to be 25 years old but was actually a 70-year-old old man, walked down from the jeep parked at the side. "Captain Hudson?" I didn't expect the ship supporting us this time to be Winchim. We have met again." Hudson's face turned serious as he saluted Ray Minkai and said, "Your Excellency, Inspector. The Macross Winchim is ready. I am Captain Hudson S. William." Please give me your orders. Captain. Let's go. We will talk about other matters on the bridge. Ray Minkai returned the salute. Yes. The Macross Windchime has completed all resupply operations. Now we will begin the Operation A06 issued by the administration. Tower, please unlock the restraints and guide the ship to a safe route. This is the tower. Mission serial number confirmed. Route cleared. Unlock the restraints. The Macross Windchime, please enter route LX000036. Understood. Route LX000036. The Macross Windchime is advancing at a slight speed. In the bridge, Feng Ling was constantly communicating with the tower in Star Glory City's spaceport in order to smoothly enter the hyperspace route in the shortest time possible. Captain, you don't have to call me Inspector anymore. You can just call me by my name. Before he sat down, Lei Minkai remembered that Hudson had always called him an inspector. This is a necessary etiquette. Your Excellency Inspector. But in private, I will directly call you by your name, and Your Excellency, you can also directly call me by my name. It's just that we are currently in the middle of a mission. Unexpectedly, Hudson seemed to be very insistent on the mission's discipline. In the end, Ray Minkai could only agree with Hudson's words. Feng Ling, how much time is left until we enter the hyperspace route? It is estimated that we will enter the hyperspace route within 10 minutes. Now that the route has been cleared, all the factors that will cause the Macross Windchime to enter the hyperspace transition within the scheduled time have been reduced to 0.1%. Feng Ling's answer made Hudson nod his head in satisfaction. Then, he turned his head to look at Ray Minkai. Your Excellency Inspector, after the Macross Windchime enters the hyperspace route, we will still be at least 3 hours away from the nearest target world. Would you like to rest first, or would you like to check the latest information on the 3 worlds? The latest information? Ray Minkai's gaze moved, showing interest. Yes. 3 hours ago, the monitoring department finally finished gathering and analyzing all the data. I have already had Feng Ling send the report to Your Excellency's personal terminal. Hudson's method made Ray Minkai very satisfied. Then, I will return to my room first, and check the latest information. All right. Before we reach the target world, I will inform Your Excellency. Saying this, Hudson raised his hand to look at his watch. It was now exactly 1 o'clock in the morning. Then, I wish Your Excellency a good dream. Following Feng Ling's guidance, when Ray Minkai returned to the room arranged for him, the white cat, State Zero, who had been quietly lying on Ray Minkai's shoulder, suddenly jumped and landed on the table. Information. The white cat, who was squatting on the table, raised its pair of slightly golden eyes and looked at Ray Minkai as he placed his personal terminal on the table and opened the latest information he received. It's here. As soon as the holographic projection was opened, the white cat extended its right paw and pointed straight at the information on the right. The urgency shown by State White Cat Zero made Lei Minkai puzzled, and at the same time, he frowned slightly. State Zero. You can feel the existence of the fragment just by relying on a piece of information? In the end, the white cat just shook its head. It's just intuition. In fact, I don't feel the existence of the fragment. The white cat got up, circled around the holographic image released by the personal terminal a few times, and then lay on the table. I can't feel it, but my intuition tells me that there must be something there. The white cat's confident tone made Ray Minkai frown even deeper, but he did not say anything, and only enlarged the information that the white cat cared about. Number X0069? After taking a closer look, Ray Minkai's brows relaxed first, and then raised slightly. It's actually this world. Although the information presented in front of him did not state what kind of world it was, it could be seen from the attached image of the void filled with countless wreckages, and the blue planet in the deepest part of the image that the world named X00069 was. This was because in front of Lei Mingkai's eyes, in the middle of the gravel belt that was filled with countless wreckages, there was a battleship wreckage floating in the air. Although it had been beaten to a pulp, one could still vaguely recognize its original appearance. That was the Magellan-class battleship in the Gao-de-Yusi era that had high hopes, but because of the emergence of the MS, it became dimmer and dimmer. Chapter 280. Hot, wet. There were also the muddy mountain roads and dense woods all year round. This was the destination of Lei Mingkai's trip, the battlefield of the Earth Federation's easternmost front army located in Southeast Asia. The low roar of the jeep reverberated back and forth in the jungle. The mountain road that had just experienced a heavy rainfall was particularly muddy. Every time they moved forward a certain distance, the jeep's engine had to roar even more fiercely, squeezing out more power to pull the jeep out of the muddy pit. TSK. This damn weather, when I just came out, the sun was still hanging in the sky. The middle-aged man, who held the steering wheel tightly with both hands and stepped on the accelerator, kept cursing the weather that changed so quickly. After finally driving the jeep out of the mud pit again, and finally on a relatively flat road, the middle-aged man slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Obviously, the muddy mountain road that he had just walked through consumed a lot of his energy. Phew! Finally out. The middle-aged man wiped his cold sweat, then raised his head slightly, moved his gaze to the rearview mirror, and looked at the back seat through the rearview mirror. A young man wearing an Earth Federation uniform with the rank of second lieutenant on his shoulder. Sorry, second lieutenant. Sorry for wasting so much of your time. The young man sitting in the back seat shook his head. His gaze wandered around the mud-covered car door, and he smiled faintly. No, don't worry about it. This is an accident. After all, this kind of situation was common in this place. As long as we can successfully reach the station of the mechanized mixed brigade, it's fine. You're really reasonable, Second Lieutenant. In that case, I have to work harder and let Second Lieutenant reach the station of the mechanized mixed brigade as soon as possible. Second Lieutenant, don't worry. The rest of the road should not be so bad. While steadily holding the steering wheel of the jeep, the middle-aged man also kept talking about some trivial matters here. Second Lieutenant, the rest of the road will be much better, because the guys from the mechanized mixed brigade drive the MS around all day long. Especially on this road leading to the rear, there are often people from the mixed brigade driving the MS, so this path has been created. The young man glanced at the huge footprints on the side of the road that had not been erased. It was the trace left by the MS after it passed by. Yes. Thanks to those bastards, the latter half of the road was finally easier to traverse. In the midst of the discussion, the jeep quickly followed the trampled road to the station of the mechanized mixed brigade. Well, Lieutenant, I'll go back first. If there's still a chance, why don't we go have a drink? The middle-aged man glanced at the soldiers guarding the entrance of the camp and turned back to look at the young man who suited his taste. Along the way, the middle-aged man could be considered to have sated his craving for chatter. The young second lieutenant, who acted as an honest listener, became more and more pleasing to the eye. Okay. Sergeant Dino, I'll ask you to give me a ride after I'm done with the interview. In return, the young second lieutenant agreed to the middle-aged man's invitation. Ha. It's settled then. After a few laughs, the middle-aged man's face suddenly darkened. Second lieutenant, don't die too early. This damn place is not suitable to be your graveyard. After that, the middle-aged man laughed again and started the jeep to drive away, leaving the young second lieutenant with a bitter smile. Then, the young second lieutenant took out a letter of appointment from his pocket, walked to the door, and handed it to the soldier who stared at him. I'm Second Lieutenant Lei Mingkai, sent by the headquarters. I'm now executing the headquarters' external publicity order to carry out the mission of interviewing the mechanized mixed brigade. Please report immediately and approve the passage. After the soldier guarding the door glanced at the young man's rank, he took the letter of appointment, nodded silently, and turned back to the sentry box to confirm the situation. After a while, the soldier who walked out of the sentry box returned the letter of appointment to the young second lieutenant and saluted. Second Lieutenant Ray Minkai, welcome to the station of the Mechanized Mixed Brigade. Now, please report to the office of the commander immediately. Understood. Thank you. As the door opened, the young second lieutenant, who was Lei Minkai, stepped into the military encampment in the depths of the forest. Why would Ray Minkai, who should have stayed on the Macross Windchime, appear in this forest with such a vile environment as a second lieutenant of the Earth Federation Army? Everything started from when the Macross Windchime smoothly sailed out of the space-time channel. Warning! Warning! Suspicious target detected. Suspicious target detected. As soon as they came out, the radar on the Windchime issued a series of ear-piercing warnings, making Hudson almost jump out of the captain's seat. Fong Ling quick, confirm the situation. Situation confirmed. It's an S-rank response. As soon as Fong Ling opened her mouth, Ray Minkai, who walked out of the elevator, was stunned. S-rank response. Captain, what's going on? Hudson pondered for a moment, and his solemn expression deepened. Sir Inspector, S-rank responses are categorized according to the response levels on the scene when our fleet fought against the Abyss. According to the Bureau's categorization, S-rank responses are the same as Level 5 Abyss responses. Level 5 Abyss responses? According to the rules of the defense law, as long as a Level 5 Abyss response is detected, the surrounding fleet and warships must immediately put down the mission at hand and head to suppress the Abyss as quickly as possible. Ray Minkai recalled the requirements of the Abyss defense law regarding Level 5 Abyss responses. This made Hudson nod in agreement. Yes. This ship must immediately head to the location of the S-rank response to suppress it. Therefore, from now on, this ship is temporarily unable to provide continuous support to Sir Inspector's mission. Saying this, Hudson gave a look to Fong Ling who was standing on the side. Fong Ling immediately followed up. Although this ship is temporarily unable to provide support to Sir Inspector, I have already paved the way for Sir Inspector's investigation. Fong Ling pointed with her finger, and a letter of appointment with Ray Minkai's portrait appeared in front of Ray Minkai, Second Lieutenant of the Earth Federation Army. You are currently following the orders of the headquarters to conduct an interview with the Easternmost Front Army? Yes. This is the method that can be found in a short period of time to allow Sir Inspector to smoothly integrate into the local environment while still possessing a certain degree of autonomy. Fong Ling-er's words made Ray Minkai smile helplessly. In the end, you just want me to be a guest reporter? Haha. That's indeed the case. After all, compared to soldiers with guns, reporters with cameras all day long are much more reassuring. Hudson was also satisfied with Fong Ling-er's arrangement. So it's really like this? Ray Minkai shook his head, immediately expressing his approval. Since that's the case, when do I set off? Now? Yes, now. Fong Ling-er will prepare everything for Sir Inspector to enter the target world. Understood. This was the reason why Ray Minkai came to this world alone. If it weren't for that sudden S-rank reaction, Level 5 Abyss reaction, perhaps Ray Minkai would still be in the forward base set up by the Macross Windchime's advance party, observing what was wrong with this world. But now, Ray Minkai could only rely on himself. One. Boom! Suddenly, a rumbling sound pulled Ray Minkai's somewhat absent-minded thoughts back to reality. It was MS. No. It should be Gouda. RX-79, Gia Land Type Gouda. With just a glance, Ray Minkai immediately recognized the identity of the huge humanoid weapon that slowly straightened its body, lifted its feet, and advanced with its head held high amidst the rumbling of the mechanical mechanism. Gouda! Perhaps there was nothing more shocking than seeing the real and mobile Gouda appear in front of his eyes. Especially for Ray Minkai, this glue addict. This was not something that could be compared to the experience of fighting with Jiaoda in the Steelpula world. Here, Ray Minkai might be able to personally enter the cockpit and experience the thrill of piloting Gouda. Are you fascinated? Kai. At this moment, White Cat State Zero's voice rang in Ray Minkai's mind. Cough cough. I'm just a little surprised. Ray Minkai, who came back to his senses, quickly coughed to cover up his gaffe. Surprised? What's there to be surprised about? Although this humanoid mech is tall, in our hometown, there are many giant soth beasts that are 100 meters tall of Gouda. Obviously, the White Cat State Zero did not understand Ray Minkai's feelings. It simply understood Ray Minkai's shock from the size of the mech State Zero. You don't understand. Ray Minkai twitched the corner of his mouth and ignored the White Cat State Zero. He immediately turned and walked towards the office where the commander was. However, when Ray Minkai arrived at the so-called office, he was slightly surprised by the commander, who was sitting in a simple tent and blowing on a fan. Thank you for your hard work. I'm the commander, Xiao Dao. Just like in the original work, this commander, who should be sitting in the office and enjoying the air conditioning, was sitting in a simple battlefield tent and blowing on an electric fan. I'm Second Lieutenant Ray Minkai. This is the letter of appointment from the headquarters. Please take a look, Commander. Ray Minkai retracted his gaze and handed over the letter of appointment with a serious face. This letter of appointment was created by Feng Ling Er's super hacker abilities, breaking through the secret network of the Earth Union Army of this world, directly creating it in the central computer. As a result, there were no flaws in it that could be seen through by anyone. Yes, I've received the order. Second Lieutenant Ray Minkai, from today onwards, except for some military secret areas, you can conduct interviews in other places. However, you must know that you must not hinder my troops from preparing to attack. Xiao Dao glanced back and forth at Ray Minkai's letter of appointment for a while, then slowly reminded Ray Minkai of the interview rules that he must pay attention to. Yes, I promise to abide by the rules of the station. However, Commander, I have a request. Speak. I hope to follow the team to the battlefield and conduct interviews on the battlefield. Ray Minkai's words made Xiao Dao stun for a moment, then he said angrily, Are you crazy? The headquarters asked you to conduct interviews, not to send you to the front line to die. Reporting, Commander. This is the front line. Ray Minkai's face turned serious and replied calmly. This sentence made Xiao Dao speechless. Yes. According to the intelligence, there was a possibility that there was a secret development base of the Gion army near this base. In other words, this seemingly safe base could be attacked by the Gion army's MS at any time. Especially in a situation where they did not know about the weapons developed by this secret base. This base could become a sacrifice for the Gion army's new weapons at any time. However, this did not mean that Xiao Dao would agree to Ray Minkai's request to go to the front line. That's all for today. Second Lieutenant, I'll send someone to bring you to your room. The interview will start tomorrow. You should have a good rest today. Xiao Dao did not want to be entangled with Ray Minkai's request to go to the front line, so he straightforwardly ordered him to leave. Ray Minkai, whose request was rejected, quickly turned around and left. This was not the only opportunity for Ray Minkai to leave the base and go to the front line. According to Ray Minkai's speculation, the opportunity would definitely come again. And this opportunity would definitely come at a certain time after the reporting of all members of 08MS. After closing the door, Ray Minkai looked at the single room that was not very spacious but was well equipped. He could not help but nod his head. This will be your residence for the next few months. Minkai. The elusive white cat State Zero appeared from the shadows of the room, jumped on the table, and looked around the room. Although it's a little small, it's much better than living in a tent. Ray Minkai sat on the bed and accidentally took out an indescribable book. Ha ha ha. Looks like the brother who lived in this room was very straightforward. White Cat State Zero looked at the indescribable book that Ray Minkai threw into the trash can and asked again. What do we do next? Do we really become a reporter and go around interviewing people? Can't we do that? The identity of a reporter is very useful. Ray Minkai pondered for a while and suddenly stared at White Cat State Zero. That sparkling gaze made State White Cat Zero shudder involuntarily. You. What are you trying to do? Kai. White Cat State Zero popped out its sharp claws and revealed a look of intimidation. Ha. Don't be nervous. State Zero. I suddenly realize that you are quite cute sometimes. So, I have a mission for you. Ray Minkai laughed and completely ignored the White Cat State Zero's sharp claws. When this fellow was in the form of a white cat, it was always a facade. In other words, he was a little arrogant. What? Mission? You need the tusked lion State Zero to cause trouble? White Cat State Zero blinked and revealed a puzzled look. No. This mission doesn't need the tusked lion State Zero, but the White Cat State Zero. Ray Minkai touched his chin and nodded while looking at the White Cat State Zero's fluffy white fur. What? White Cat State Zero? Yes. State Zero. Tomorrow, you'd better go to the north and find the hidden base of the Federation Army's enemy hidden in the mountains. Then, find a girl named Ina Sakhaline and stay by her side to observe if there's anything wrong with the Gion Army base. Chapter 281. The weather in the tropical rainforest was like a girl's heart. It changed quickly and didn't give people any time to react. The cloudless sky just now turned into dark clouds and heavy rain in the blink of an eye. This made the soldiers who had just finished a morning of intense work quite unhappy. This was because their lunch was distributed in the tents on the battlefield. What was even more unfortunate was that although the soldiers had raincoats that could cover their whole body and prevent them from getting wet, the plates they used for lunch were not so lucky. TSK. What kind of weather is this? The sun was scorching just now. The soldiers lined up to receive their lunch while cursing God for not giving them face. They skillfully took out something that could temporarily cover their plates from under their raincoats and prevent them from getting wet. Then, after receiving their lunch, they quickly covered their plates, turned around, and ran back to Neku where they were working. Looking at God's situation, if they stayed in the rainstorm for one more second, their poor lunch would be soaked in rainwater. It's really hard. Ray Minkai stood in the battlefield tent and took photos of the soldiers who were cursing God while running back to Neku. He shook his head slightly. The situation here seemed to be worse than the impression in Ray Minkai's mind. Because the rainstorm made the scene that only existed in the anime OP appear in front of Ray Minkai's eyes. The battlefield environment is like this. Second Lieutenant. At this time, a voice sounded behind Ray Minkai. It was the captain of the mechanized mixed brigade, and also the captain, Lieutenant Colonel Kojima. Captain. The situation here is indeed a bit beyond my expectations, but overall it feels okay. Ray Minkai put down the photos in his hand and said seriously. Is that so? Maybe the headquarters doesn't know too much about the situation here, but even if they know, I'm afraid they won't care too much. Kojima looked at the headquarters of the Earth Federation Army, where Chabro was, and said meaningfully, Our counterattack is about to begin. According to the direction of the timeline, the universe battlefield had probably entered a crucial moment. In the vast universe, a war that would determine the future of humanity on Earth was about to begin. It seems that you are well informed, Second Lieutenant. Xiao Dao chuckled and didn't want to continue this topic. After all, to the others, the war that was about to begin was still a secret. No. I just have some reliable sources of information. After all, my duty is to collect information about the situation at the front line, summarize it, and send it to the rear. Ray Minkai raised the camera in his hand and said calmly, "Really? Well then, Second Lieutenant, since everyone is here, why don't you start your interview now? Otherwise, in another half an hour, some teams will attack." Xiao Dao stepped forward and patted Ray Minkai on the shoulder. Then she turned around and walked away. Now? Ray Minkai turned around and looked at the dark clouds that showed no signs of dissipating. It was likely that the torrential rain would continue for a while. Therefore, Lei Minkai did not follow Xiao Dao's instructions and immediately conduct an investigation. Instead, he waited until the simple battlefield kitchen had distributed all the lunches before he casually picked up a raincoat and put it on. Then, he walked toward the garage not far away. From his observation, he learned that this Neku seemed to be used by a Team 6. Is this the team that was unfortunately ambushed and destroyed when Team 08 assembled, Team 06? Stepping on the puddles that spread to his feet, Ray Minkai came to the front of the Neku with the number 06 painted on the door. Through the half-open door, Ray Minkai immediately saw the giant humanoid MS parked in the middle of the Neku, the land battle Gauda. In the dim light, a part of the armor on the tall and mighty land battle Gauda was removed, revealing the intricate parts inside. Surrounding the land battle Gauda was a lifting platform filled with various parts and tools. Obviously, not long ago, the land battle Gauda was being repaired. Ray Minkai's eyes moved away from the land battle Gauda and gradually looked at the corner of the Neku, the corner where the faint sound of voices came from. 4 men and 1 woman. A middle-aged man with a square face and eyes that always showed a hint of sternness. Sitting on his left and right were a man and a woman. The man looked to be around 24 or 25 years old. He had blonde hair and a handsome face. The woman was a woman with short brown hair. She looked like a heroine. Finally, the person sitting in front of the 3 people, whose back was facing Lei Minkai, was a middle-aged man with white hair and whose face could not be seen clearly. The other was a young man whose clothes were covered in oil. From the back, he seemed to be a young man who was not even 20 years old. A guest is here. While Ray Minkai was looking at these 5 people, the middle-aged man with a square face also noticed Ray Minkai standing next to the door. As soon as the middle-aged man spoke, the blonde handsome man sitting next to him immediately stood up, walked quickly to the door, and looked at Ray Minkai, who was wrapped in a raincoat. "I'm Sergeant Carlo Saint. May I ask who you are?" Because of the raincoat and the heavy rain, Ray Minkai's appearance was a little blurred in the eyes of the blonde handsome man, and he couldn't distinguish his appearance for a while. "Can you let me in? The rain won't stop for a while." Ray Minkai smiled slightly, but his eyes passed the blonde handsome man and looked at the middle-aged man with a square face across the air. "Carlo, let this gentleman in." The square face spoke. The blonde handsome man named Carlo nodded, stepped aside, and motioned for Ray Minkai to come in. When the rain dripped from the raincoat to the ground, Ray Minkai finally walked into the Neku used by the 6th Squad. Taking off his hood, Ray Minkai saluted and introduced himself. "I'm Second Lieutenant Ray Minkai. I'm now carrying out an interview task issued by the headquarters. I wonder if you have time to help me complete this task?" Ray Minkai's face, or his self-introduction, made the 6th Squad sitting in the corner have a clear understanding of him. Yesterday, news of Lei Minkai's arrival had already spread throughout the encampment. As long as one wasn't an idiot, one would know that this station at the front line welcomed a war reporter sent by the headquarters to interview here. Therefore, some soldiers rubbed their hands and some didn't care. And the 6th Squad was a member of the latter. But due to the orders of the headquarters, and the instructions of Captain Xiao Dao, even if he didn't care about this so-called interview task, the squad leader of the 6th Squad, the square-faced man, couldn't show too much resistance. "Welcome to the 6th Squad. Second Lieutenant Ray Minkai. I'm the squad leader of the 6th Squad, First Lieutenant Ray Minkai. I'm the MS pilot of the 6th Squad, Meanies Lintz." This was the only female pilot of the 6th Squad. Member of the 6th Squad, Merster Molinti. Member of the 6th Squad, Sam Trott. Under the lead of the square-faced man, the members of the 6th Squad introduced themselves one by one. "Nice to meet you. I'm Second Lieutenant Ray Minkai. I'm very happy to be able to work with you." After a brief greeting, Ray Minkai took out a notebook and prepared to start the interview. But, before Ray Minkai could open his mouth, the youngest and also the youngest guy in the 6th Squad, Sam Trott, was pushed in front of Ray Minkai by the other squad members. "Kid, this glorious task will be handed over to you. Bravely be our vanguard." The blonde handsome Carlo had a naughty smile on his face as he pressed Sam down on the seat. Obviously, this pitiful little guy had already been sold by his own squad members. "Hello. Are you ready?" Ray Minkai flipped open the notebook and calmly looked at Sam, who suddenly became somewhat reserved. And "I'm ready." Maybe it was because he was nervous, or maybe it was because it was his first time being interviewed, but this youth who looked like a new recruit looked very timid. "Sam, calm down. It's just a conversation. It's not for you to go to the battlefield." Standing at the side, the square-faced squad leader, Lionheart, couldn't stand it anymore and opened his mouth to pacify this young squad member. "Yes, relax. I'm not a demon that will eat you." "Sam, why did you become a soldier?" Ray Minkai followed Lionheart's words and directly asked the first question of the interview. And this question was also the same question. Even so, in this question, this 6th Squad member who was the youngest, the least experienced, and also the one who was the most miserably sold by his teammates gradually stabilized his position and calmly faced Ray Minkai's question. Not long later, Sam's interview ended. And this short interview also made the other members of the 6th Squad interested, and they began to scramble to sit on the small stool in front of Ray Minkai. At the same time, they also scrambled to let Ray Minkai take a few solo photos of them. Ray Minkai also complied with these requests one by one. But the members of the 6th Squad didn't know that this was likely to be the only solo photo they took before they died. Moreover, before this interview ended, the rainforest outside was covered by a rainstorm as suddenly as it came and left as suddenly as it came. The rainstorm that seemed to last for the entire afternoon suddenly cleared up under everyone's astonished gaze. Therefore, the entire base that was interrupted by the rainstorm immediately began to busy themselves. "That's it. Second Lieutenant. I'm very sorry. The 6th Squad still has to continue with the mission. When we come back, we'll continue with the Second Lieutenant's interview, okay?" Lionheart raised his hand to stop the female pilot, Meanies, who wanted to sit on the stool for the interview, and looked at the clear sky outside. Ray Minkai followed Lionheart's gaze and looked outside, then he closed the notebook full of interview drafts and nodded. "Then, this interview will temporarily stop. Thank you for your assistance. Captain Lionheart, see you later." "See you later. Second Lieutenant, I'm still waiting for you to interview me." The female pilot, Meanies, winked at Ray Minkai playfully. "There will be a chance." Ray Minkai waved at the members who were ready to attack, then he turned around and walked out of Neku. However, Ray Minkai stood in front of Neku's door for a moment, then he turned around and walked towards the field tent that the captain, Xiao Dao, often stayed in. After the rainstorm, the air in the rainforest was cool. This made Xiao Dao, who couldn't adapt to air conditioning and could only rely on fans to resist the heat, have a sigh of relief. However, this sigh of relief disappeared when Ray Minkai came to the door. "What? Second Lieutenant, can you say that again?" Xiao Dao's voice was unusually sharp, and he seemed to be particularly surprised. He couldn't help but be surprised. He originally thought that the person sent by the headquarters would return with the same interview drafts, but at this juncture, he actually requested to follow the squad out for a frontline interview. This made Xiao Dao jump on the spot. Yes, Captain. I request to follow the 6th squad out, and at the same time conduct a field interview on this battlefield. Facing Xiao Dao's surprise, Ray Minkai replied calmly. Nonsense. Xiao Dao waved his hand and showed a stance that he wouldn't agree. Sir, I'm currently carrying out an interview mission from the headquarters. If I only bring back the interview drafts of the brave soldiers of the Federation Army, it won't help the headquarters or even the people understand the bravery of the Federation Army. It also won't be able to understand how the brave Federation Army defeated the Guion Army that committed many crimes in the harsh environment and provided the people behind with a peaceful sky and a peaceful life. In the face of rejection, Ray Minkai played his trump card. Of course, as the captain, Xiao Dao wouldn't agree to Ray Minkai's request because of this. Even if the excuse Ray Minkai used at this moment was very righteous. War is not a game for players. Second Lieutenant, the front line is a place where you can joke around. Do you know that in this battlefield, a bullet may fly from the dense forest next to you at any time and send you to heaven? Xiao Dao stood up, slammed the table, and looked at Ray Minkai sternly. In his eyes, Ray Minkai, who came to interview with the headquarters order, was just a terrifying newborn calf that didn't know anything about war. Yes, I know it very well. I also know the environment I'm in. I hope that the captain can approve my request. Ray Minkai straightened his back and responded loudly to Xiao Dao's question. What if I don't approve? Xiao Dao stared sharply into Ray Minkai's eyes. I'll stay in the station until the captain approves. Ray Minkai's words made Xiao Dao's eyelids twitch uncontrollably. According to the contents of the order, Ray Minkai was going to conduct an interview in this station for a month. In other words, during this month, Xiao Dao had to endure the harassment of Ray Minkai coming to apply to follow the team to the front line every few days to conduct interviews in the front line. Thinking of this, Xiao Dao couldn't help but slam the table hard. Good. Since you have fully understood your request and the environment you're in, then I approve your request. Second Lieutenant Ray Minkai. I hope you won't regret it. Yes. Thank you, Captain. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.